Ooh, we're live.
Are we on? Oh, it's okay.
We're on now.
Good. So now I can say what I was going to type.
Oh, which was?
Does anyone have a good vegetarian chili recipe?
Okay, this is great. You know, not everyone's
Did you
watching
see that
the chat.
coming? Oh, okay. Well,
All
maybe
right.
they should be.
I guess.
There's good stuff.
Hi, everyone.
I would
How's it
love,
going?
like,
I apologize.
I've gone, like, I'm really like, my percentage vegetarian grows daily. Like I sort of like was mostly, and now I'm like committing more. But the one thing that I have not found is a good vegetarian chili recipe.
That seems. Come on, that's easy.
I
Beans.
found an amazing beef one. I don't think anyone. Yeah, no beans for sure. But like, there's something I think that the meat like lends. It might just be like a saltiness. Like there's something that isn't replicated in any of these. I'm trying this week. I'm trying a bulgur wheat, a bulgur chili.
Yeah, Bulgur's good. Brian, I'd love to, like, this is not the patron cast, right? So I feel like we should probably get a little energy going here.
Hi.
We're live. What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate because this is for the live people. It's only a perk for patrons, right? So thank you so much for your support and hope you enjoyed this live show. I've got not asleep baby that I'm just going to push forward here, and hopefully it won't be one of these ones where I leave you a million times and make this a disaster. Though after the edit, it's obviously good. But anyway, we'll do our best. I'm really stoked. Brian, shall we commence?
Dude.
Shall we commence? We have our opening joke. I feel like we have whatever we need.
Yeah, let's commence.
We've got Phil here. We've got Norm. We're
Let's
talking chili in the
convocate.
chat. Here we go. Let's do that hockey. Okay. Podcasting. Yay! Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest-running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who I'm pretty sure wouldn't perform better if the other one was on the shelf, unlike Draisaitl and Bo Horvat recently. We'll get into them. I'm your host, Dylan Dabrowski, and with me, as always, to break down all the latest injuries, oucheries, hot streaks, cold streaks, all the fixes. It's the Poobah Prognostication, the IPP MVP, the fantasy hockey robot himself, Brian. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? We had a great patron cast last week. It was our November patron cast. We just did it right at I'm going to call it, it was released at the first day of November. We were very timely. If you're ever craving some extra content where it's like an Ask Me Anything episode, some of it is fantasy hockey, some of it is not. We'd love for you to check it out. All 150 something.
Wait, what's the reason why you're saying this at the start? Is there something especially great about this episode that you're happy for people to hear?
You know what? I don't know. I'm feeling
right
good.
Away, I'm like, Brian, how's it going? You're like, advertise the Patreon. Let's go. That's how I'm doing.
You know what?
Become a patron.
It wasn't planned. I mean, you kind of took. Well, I gave you what I think my chit chat content was going to be for the opening joke. So now I didn't have it anymore, and I was scrambling. So I went to that, which I don't think is a bad move. But
great.
Anyway, it's nice to be here with you again. Yeah, ABC. So I almost said it myself, but I didn't want to be too cheap. I'm glad you pulled it out. I'm happy to be here again with you. This is it hasn't been that long since we chatted, but there's still so much to talk about. And I hope everyone's having a nice fantasy hockey season. Like win or lose, I just want to put that out there. Hope everyone's enjoying themselves.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes easier said than done. My whole team, this whole episode could just be like cold streaks of me just going through the players on my cupful team. And I think that would be like the full content for an episode. So it's been a bit of but it's also the kind of thing where once I realize I'm going to lose big, it's like, okay, let's all get it out of our system, right? Let's get this cold streak out of the way. And then starting next week, we can get back on track here. But you'll notice a lot of the players that I do have on track here are going to be players that I'll mention I have on my team. But I'm still having a good time. Always fun to hang out in the Discord. Brian, second plug for our Patreon. And actually, let me do one more super quick, and then
don't do it.
I got 3. It's like Beetlejuice. You got to do it 3 times. Once you do it once, you got to do it 3 times. Brian and I have came to a decision for the longest time, we've had our perks for the main patron tier, the $5 tier, which is just like we give everything we have basically. Then at one point we made a $10 tier, which was like basically for super supporters. All you get is a shout out, basically. Just if you want to give us more support, we really, really appreciate it. We shout you out, but we weren't gonna come up with like what's a new perk
They get a fancy color on the Discord server, so everybody knows. Yeah,
everyone knows how wealthy they are. So because it's always good to really like let people know, of course. But yeah, no, we love the super supporters, and we just decided on another perk that we're gonna throw out there for any super. If you're a super supporter, you're gonna get this. If you're not, you could consider it. Okay. As people may know, the podcast industry overall not making as much money from the ads as there was a heyday at one point. Let me tell all of you, and Brian and I enjoyed that heyday for a short time. And then it went away around COVID, where you were able to make a lot of money from advertising. I guess a lot of companies with the economy. I don't want to get into the whole. It's not a episode of Planet Money over here, but whatever. The advertisers aren't whatever paying as much as they used to for podcast ads. But we've still been doing ads. Brian and I just joined a podcast network recently, so you've been hearing me doing a lot of shilling for companies. Up to you if you've been listening to it or skipping it. But we've decided. Patreon does give us the ability to release Patreon does give us the ability to release podcast episodes just to the patrons, right? And you get a special RSS feed, or you can subscribe via Spotify, and that's where we've been posting our patron casts. So we've decided we're going to start posting our regular episodes to the Patreon for super supporters with no ads. It'll be an ad-free episode. So look at that. So if you're like, I don't like these ads, they're annoying me. If you want to give us your support as a patron, $10 a month, we'll drop every single episode in that feed, ad-free. Don't have to worry about it. So that's up to you. Like I'm not saying please do that, but I'm saying if you don't like the ads, because the way to make up for ads paying less, whatever, you do more ads. I don't know, but if you don't like the ads, that's an option to you. Just want to throw that out there. This will be the first episode where I'll release it in 2 plays. Extra work for me, by the way. Every night I have to edit the show, put in all the whatever, put in the ad spots, upload it to all the place. I gotta upload it to an extra place. I gotta make an extra MP3 version, but I'm willing to do it because I know that some patrons have been talking about how they don't love some of the ads we do. So there you go. But Brian, any thoughts before we get to our content here?
Sounds amazing. I would sign up for that personally.
You could.
Yeah, maybe I will. What do you call it when a podcaster keeps their ad reads really short and brusque?
DeBrusque? Oh, is this a Jake DeBrusque rep? I don't get it. What?
Kurt Schilling.
Kurt Schilling. What was brusque? What? I don't get the joke.
Like brusque it's a word.
Kurt Schilling. Why Kurt Schilling then?
We'll use the word shilling to describe advertising.
Yeah.
But
what is the Kurt? Oh, Kurt is another synonym for brusque?
For short, yeah.
I get it. I got it. Okay. Now I get
it. Okay.
I blew
sure.
it. That's on me. I didn't know this word brusque. How do you spell that? BRUSK? I thought you were making a Jake DeBrusque reference.
No, it ends with a Q. It ends with a QUE.
Brian's got a good vocabulary, everyone. He's very good at Scrabble. You're not going to beat him. Abrupt or offhand in speech or manner. Brusque.
Look at that.
TIL. All right, let's talk some hockey. It's not a patron cast. I guess we got to get into it here. I got a lot of fun stuff for us today. And I guess by fun, I mean devastating injuries to start from superstar players. So let's go to Edmonton where, Connor McDavid is out. It's not super serious. They said it's going to be a couple weeks. I'm sure Oilers fans are on one hand hoping he'll be back soon. On the other hand, obviously take your time, make sure you heal completely. It's an ankle injury. 2 to 3 weeks is what the Oilers tweeted out. So not a big deal, but still, we've got some fantasy to play in the meantime. I think it's the kind of thing where you would assume with McDavid out, that's bad for everyone who plays with him because he generates so much offense. Leon Draisaitl is the guy that comes to mind. But actually, as Shams pointed out on Short Shifts last week or a couple of weeks ago, Draisaitl really turns it on when McDavid is hurt in the past. And it's looked that way so far. Draisaitl had 3 points in the Oilers' previous game, which was against Columbus back on, Thursday? And it looks like, against 3 points. against Nashville back a couple days ago on Halloween, and looks like he's already scored today. The Oilers, we're recording this Sunday night. It's around 8:17. It's 1-0 already, and it looks like the Oilers have their goal from, Leon Draisaitl, assisted by Brian Vasily Podkolzin. So obviously, I don't know what advice I can give you, except go back in time and maybe don't trade Draisaitl for Pasternak like I did, because now all of a sudden Draisaitl's scoring all the goals and Pasternak is a little bit cold. But obviously nothing you can do about that. Enjoy the potential extra production. It's very cool of Draisaitl. I feel like that's like a Malkin used to do that when Crosby was injured. He would like go off. It's a cool thing that's of the like second best players on teams tend to do. But yeah, the lines have been, of course, very interesting. Namely, the guys playing with Draisaitl now, which you'd assume are like the guys you want, and they've been Arvidsson and Podkolzin. And Arvidsson is like, in shallow leagues, he's been available in a lot of leagues, and he had a really slow start to the season. He was dropped in like a couple division. I guess, in hindsight, blew it. I probably should have jumped on him when I had the chance, but I was like, hey, he's not on the top power play. What's he really going to do? All of a sudden now, he's actually still not on the top power play, but he did score a goal in that game against Nashville. He took 5 shots, so he's, taking a lot of shots, actually, if you look at the game log for Victor Arvidsson. And then in your deeper leagues, this Vasily Podkolzin, who is just a cast off from the Canucks, all of a sudden a top liner on the Oilers, had a point in the last game, a point again so far today in this game that's just started. You also get a ton of hits from Podkolzin. So I feel like the first notice here is, now that Draisaitl is going to be your focal point, you probably want to get a piece of Arvidsson and then in a deeper league Podkolzin, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I was gonna, yeah.
Take it back.
Oh, I mean, you just said it is such a given, and I don't know that I don't know that it is. Podkolzin, infamously taken 10th overall by Vancouver in 2019. I say infamous because like there are some picks that just catch fire for being contentious and strange. Like I'm thinking back to. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. I went going for fishing for Lawson Krause was one. I feel like was it Puljärvi or Kotkaniemi? Like someone was anyway. Let me just do that again. Who was taken before Puljärvi?
Why don't you just do the whole thing again?
I'm gonna do the whole thing again.
All right. So I said you probably want to get Arvidsson and maybe even Podkolzin in a deeper league.
Yeah. Oh, it was Olli Juolevi. That was the guy after Puljärvi. Okay. Do you want to go ahead and get Podkolzin?
No, I said. Well, I didn't exactly say that. I said I said Arvidsson and then Podkolzin in a deeper league.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You want to look at who's getting turns in the top 6 in Edmonton. Even though that top 6 is without Connor McDavid, it's still a top 6. It's still filled with Leon Draisaitl as well. So you want guys playing with him. Podkolzin, like, yeah, for sure. For a deep league, I understand where you're coming from. I just don't know exactly what you can expect other than maybe some hits every so often. I know 2 points in 2 games. He hasn't taken a shot, since October 28th. He's played a full game and like a period since then. We'll keep an eye on the shot count for Podkolzin. Infamously taken 10th overall by Vancouver in 2010. There's some picks that just like really catch fire for like being like contentious and argue and be like, how could you take that guy there? Podkolzin, I feel like, was one of them, and he really hasn't shown a whole lot of offense at the time. I'm trying to think of the others. Like Lawson Krause is another Canucks pick. Olli Juolevi was also a 5th overall. Picked
what about that Sens pick
just before Matthew Tkachuk and Clayton Keller. Oh,
who's that guy who the Sens took? That's really terrible. From a couple years ago. It was a top 10 pick. You must know. You're a Sens fan. Come on.
Are you talking about like Brian Lee?
No, like a recent really bad Sens first round pick hasn't played.
Lassie Thompson.
No.
I don't
okay,
know.
You keep going.
There's a handful. Are you thinking like Tyler Boucher? Like they've reached.
Boucher.
Okay. They've reached. I don't know. That's like a guaranteed slam dunk terrible, and it wasn't as high as some. Anyway, we don't need to go all the way in there. Just to say, Elon, you know what? Great, you brought up Podkolzin in a deep league. Sure, Arvidsson. Absolutely. Draisaitl, by the way, though, Draisaitl got a rap as being cold. And like that really just meant a bunch of games where he had 1 point. I think the perception was fueled by Draisaitl's first few games where he had just a goal, no assists, and 5 shots. And that goal came on the power play. And then he had a near cardio session at Columbus last week. Draisaitl registered a hit and nothing else, but that was sandwiched between two games in which Draisaitl had 2 goals and assists for 3 points. One of those was a 7-shot game. One thing impacting all of Edmonton so far, when everyone's struggling, including the goalies, to pick up wins. One overarching issue that's affected all of them has been the Edmonton power play has not found its groove. Usually, it is threatening in a way that no other teams are. And Edmonton is looking like average threatening this year. They're still good, but they're not like the world beaters they have been in the past. Beyond that, they're shooting less than 8% with the man advantage, the Oilers. That's about a 10% drop than their usual number on the power play. And forget the percentages, just some rote numbers on the Edmonton power play. Just 4 power play goals through 11 games, and that's on 30 opportunities. Only 3 teams have fewer power play goals. And, actually, now only 2 teams because Toronto has a power play goal tonight. So the Oilers are converting at a 13% success rate on the power play versus their usual. Last year they were at 26%, which honestly, the Oilers, I think they can keep that up. And they're also 30 power play opportunities, tied for the fewest in the league. So they need more chances to go on the power play, and when they get them, they need to score more often. This is the obvious take here, but like I'm just going back to frame like Draisaitl's cold quote unquote start. And the power play is still struggling, by the way, while Draisaitl clicks along at a 97-point pace. I think he faces some 5-on-5 regression, but I will take the over on the 97-point pace because the power play is still to come. So, sorry, Elon, I'm sure that's not what you wanted to talk about, given that you've traded Draisaitl away recently. At least you got some of this as a parting gift, but it's for anyone who endured the decency of Draisaitl through the start of the season. This is maybe the start of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I definitely, first of all, agree with you. I think Draisaitl has a lot more to give. And you're like, sort of go quote unquote cold, like, ha ha ha, like people called him cold when it was only point per game. Like, point per game is not what it used to be. If Leon Draisaitl ends the season with 82 points, that's a disaster season for him. And everyone who drafted him hates him hates his guts and never drafts him again, right? Like, you're drafting Draisaitl hoping for like 110 plus points. But I do agree with you that if the power play picks up, that'll be good for him. And of course, we didn't really mention the whole McDavid being away thing, which I'd assume that makes it a little harder to score power play goals, but it'll only be 2 or 3 weeks. And I will still stand by, I would say, even in not the deepest of leagues, Podkolzin, if your league counts hits, is interesting while playing on the top line with said Leon Draisaitl. But I guess Trev can check back on us in a couple weeks and let me know how bad that take turned out. On the flip side, Brad, I guess one casualty of that power play being so cold has been Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Holy cow. Like, yeah, Jeff Skinner hasn't been that great either, and Zach Hyman hasn't been great. Like, there's a few Oilers that have let people down, but Hyman, for what it's worth, scored in the last game. Like, he has an assist today. Actually, Jeff Skinner just scored, assisted by Zach Hyman. So still cold for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who is someone who's rostered, in all cupful divisions, of course. And those managers who drafted him have only 4 points in 12 games now, or I guess 11 and whatever in a bit. We'll see how today's game ends up. But yeah, like, is this a situation where, I guess, like, with players like this at this point in the season, I feel like the one thought is, like, I don't have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I see he's cold. Should I go and, like, be making trade offers now? Should I be, like, offering my Granlund or whatever, like, hot guy I got late in the draft or in free agency and go and get Ryan Nugent-Hopkins? Or is this actually a reason for concern? Obviously, it's not going to get too much better for him, I wouldn't think, over these next couple of weeks, because he's just lost Connor McDavid as a line mate.
I think, yeah. So you might be waiting a couple weeks because McDavid is one of the reasons why that Oilers power play is so dangerous. But I think it's still reasonable to say that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins can be like a 65-ish point player, and I kind of hesitated there because he is seeing a bit of a TOI cut at 5-on-5, which I don't know if that time's going to come back. Like, we're seeing he hasn't lost a lot, and it's actually not so out of line with past years. It's just he's playing on the whole in all situations almost 2 minutes less per night than usual. It might be short-handed time that he's losing. I'm really trying to find where the other minute and a half is. Anyway, yeah, I think the short answer is yes. When the Oilers power play starts clicking, I expect Ryan Nugent-Hopkins will be able to be getting in on that. And right now he deserves a little better than he's gotten at 5-on-5 too. If you're hoping for like 100-point Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I wouldn't hang your hat on that. But if you are trading for a 65-ish point Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, then yeah. Like we talked about Sam Bennett. Was it on the Patron cast or last week?
I
I think it was last week.
Cast.
A Patron cast. Oh, okay. As someone who
The question on the Patron cast was who are some sell high players right now, and I think I may have brought up Bennett there, but whatever. My memory's foggy.
Or like Laferriere. Like I'm trying to think of other players, and we'll talk about Laferriere later though. And yeah, I think Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. If the question is he a decent buy low target? Yes, I think Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is a decent buy low target.
I mean, you say yes, but also you said only if you're expecting like a 65-point pace. So it's like depends how low we're talking for the cost here.
But that's his standard. Like that 100-point season was an outlier. Generally, he's 65 points. Maybe that's like more the floor, and I guess that's me being cautious.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't disagree with you, by the way. I totally agree. Like I'd probably expect him to get back around 65, 70 point pace, like assuming he's playing with Connor McDavid for most of the season and on that top power play. Okay, next big injury, Matt Barzal is out 4 to 6 weeks. He was already like not having the most amazing season, so maybe this is going to be one of our classic vacations we talk about, where the player has some time to heal his physical injury, but also like get mentally and figure out like what was going on. Maybe Barzal could spend some time in these next month and a half, thinking like, I remember last year when it went really well, I was shooting a lot. I wonder if I should try that again when I come back. So that's something maybe that's some homework we can give to Barzal to figure out while he's away. In the meantime, it's been some crazy lines in power plays for the Islanders. They lost today to the Rangers 5-2 in a game where Brock Nelson scored a goal from Paul Mary and Anders Lee, which has been, I guess I'd call that is that the top line? I don't know. They've had, no, I guess that hasn't even been a line. So I don't even know how that happened. Maybe they were shaking things around a little bit. It's been Horvat with Anders Lee and JG Pajot on a line, even though I thought Pajot and Horvat were both centers. But I guess, you got to figure something out here with people missing. Paul Mary's been playing with Brock Nelson and Maxim Siplikov. They've also been splitting the power plays pretty evenly. So Nelson and Paul Mary, I would have thought if I would have just guessed like what's going to happen, like Barzal's injured, who benefits, whatever, all of that stuff, I'd be like, okay, yeah, well, Kyle Palmieri probably gets to the top power play and sticks there. But no, it's like Bo Horvat and Anders Lee and Pajot and Wallstrom have been on one power play, and then Nelson, Palmieri, Holmstrom, and Siplikov on another one. Good news, I guess, for Ryan Pulak, who's getting a bit more power play time than you'd expect. But of course, they also just lost a game, so who knows what Patrick Waugh is going to do for the next game for the Islanders. So I've said a lot of gibberish. I haven't given any advice yet. I guess the player that interests me, first of all, is it's interesting that Bo Horvat, similar to Draisaitl, had himself a big game after Barzal left the lineup. 1 goal, 1 assist, and 8 shots. Definitely the best game of the season for Horvat against the Sabres a couple days ago. Looks like he did nothing, though, and only 3 shots today. So maybe I'll be curious to know if this is like the kind of thing where you expect it to help or hurt Bo Horvat. And then if you want me to throw you a player who maybe benefits and you want to jump on, I guess this is my Podkolzin level potential guy, and I want to get your take on see if you're as low. But Anders Lee, someone we used to like on the podcast back in the day, all of a sudden now had 2 assists against Buffalo, an assist today, taking a ton of shots. You look at the game log for Anders Lee, I'm seeing 2, 5, 2, 6, 3, 6, 3. So, like what does that average out to? Like probably around like 3 shots per game. Actually, if you look on the season, it's 4 shots per game. It's incredible. So, and now he's going to get maybe a bigger power play role, at least in this short-term time while Barzal is out. So maybe time to refresh our memories on Anders Lee being a worthwhile guy in fantasy and someone to consider. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Horvat and I guess Anders Lee? By the way, and I will say I still like Kyle Palmieri. I think he'd be like the higher than Anders Lee, but assuming Kyle Palmieri's gone, is Lee someone you're taking a look at?
I will agree with you on like the ordering of them. And yeah, I would take a look at Anders Lee if Kyle Palmieri is not available to you. 4 shots per game looks good. And Anders Lee had 7 straight games with 3 or more shots. And honestly, anyone in my fantasy lineup who's doing at least that much, I'm happy with. And Lee has been getting some points along with those shots too. Like this is kind of big that Anders Lee is taking 4 shots per game. The last time he shot anywhere near this much, which was 3 shots per game, that harkens back to a time when Anders Lee was a 30 to 40 goal player He's getting 55, 60 points, which we last saw for a quarter of a season 4 years ago in 2020, 2021. Those days, by the way, were fueled by a high shooting percentage in his best years and a top power play shooting role that honestly does, like, I don't expect him to get that back. But this year, while taking 4 shots per game, honestly, he's shooting just 6%. So he should have at least a couple more goals, even without that top power play shooting role. And this is all to say that Lee looks better than the 40-point player we saw last year and the 50-point guy we've seen prior. He still feels like he could run hot and cold. He's 34 years old. It's been a while since he's been really relevant. But the shots are great. So as long as they're coming, yeah, I'm interested in it. And this for Bo Horvat. In the vein of Leon Draisaitl, also, I didn't actually mention Draisaitl with the Edmonton power play. I think he has 2 power play points through 11 games. Horvat has 2 power play points through 12 games. And like Barzal, Horvat's underlying numbers, they look mostly fine. But the team is shooting 4.5% at 5-on-5, which is about half of what we would normally expect. So there's that. The thing that might not regress, though, is the chaotic power play situation, which, like, I need to see it last for like 2 weeks, and then I'll believe that the chaos is over and we can really, assume that what's going to exist will stay and then think about how effective it is. But that's, I think I mentioned Barzal. I liked a lot of what he was doing, even if the points weren't coming, but I still can't fully take him at the value that I would have held him at last season, like going into the season or during last season, because of the power play deployment is just not consistent or predictable or good. So same goes for Horvat.
Yeah, totally reasonable. It's a weird situation going on for the Islanders. I wonder how far out they'll be by the time Barzal comes back. That's obviously a big loss for the team overall. Next injury, let's go to Carolina. Frederik Andersen is hurt. Rod Brind'Amour said he's week to week. Was reevaluated for a lower body injury, so we don't have like too many details about how long he'll be gone. But obviously, Frederik Andersen, someone who's missed a lot of time in the past for various reasons. So obviously, the advice, and like I'm not going to say not to do this. Like Petr Kochetkov is now the starting goalie on Carolina. He's going to play a lot. It is kind of funny to look at his game log for the last 3 games. It's like such a typical Carolina goalie game log. Like he won today against Washington, let in 2 goals on 23 shots. So that's an above 900 save percentage. Nothing incredible. 913. His last couple of games were also wins against Boston and Vancouver. Both of those games sub 900 save percentages, but still got the wins. That's what happens when, like, against Boston only took 15 shots in that game. And so Carolina got the win 8-2. So they destroyed it, but only 15 shots for Boston. I'm sorry for the stutter there. I was like, did they really score 8? Like, I guess that explains the next thing I'm going to talk about. But anyways, yeah. So the goaltending, obviously, grab Kochetkov. He's probably going to play a lot. And like, even if he's not going to give you the most amazing save percentages, you're probably going to get a ton of wins there. But yeah, the offense over in Carolina is insane. Like 2 guys I want to point out specifically. Martin Necas is coming off. So today against Washington, so before I wrote all this, like I was going to praise Necas. That was before he played today and put up another multi-point game. 1 goal and 2 assists against the Capitals in the 4-2 win. That's his 3rd straight multi-point game. Necas is now up to 18 points in 10 games on the season. Just, it's incredible. That's a 148-point pace. Like, he's destroying. And I remember going into the year, we were like, oh, I don't know what the upside is. If they load up the top line with Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis, like, who's Necas even playing with? Guess what? Necas is like, I don't care because I'm a superstar hockey player. And for what it's worth, Necas today was playing with Eric Robertson and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who you'd be like, oh, that's not going to be a recipe for success. Again, a goal and 2 assists. Necas doesn't care. None of those points were power play points, by the way. All even strength for Necas. So he's incredible. And another guy that I'll just drool about, and I'll just throw to Brian after all this, and I'm not even going to ask a question. I'm just going to be drool until I've filled a bucket of drool, and then it'll be up to Brian to decide what to do with that bucket. Andrei Svechnikov. Holy cow. what a season he's having. I mean, not to the Natchez levels, but Svechnikov up to 11 points in 10 games. He's on a 5-game point streak right now. He's taking so many shots, which I love to see. Svechnikov finally like delivering what we expected for our like bangers categories league. You know, when you where you count the shots and you count the hits. He's like his hits haven't even been incredible, but his shots, he's up to 4.1 shots per game. Anders Lee level of shots, even higher for Andrei Svechnikov. And of course, all of these points, all of these goals. I wonder if this is the year where Svechnikov finally lives up to the hype of like not just being, lock him in for 70 to 75 points. That's what he seems to always do. He's only 24 years old, so I wasn't expecting that to last his whole career. I wonder if this will be the year. So, Brian, yeah, Svechnikov, Natchez, let's just praise them some more.
I really don't want your bucket of drool, though. That was really gross.
It's here.
I don't want to even figuratively. I'm uncomfortable with it.
They're too good. They're so good. How can you even like? You're making me feel it more.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'll save it to become a bucket of cold water to dump on someone else who's not necessarily Natchez. Multiple points in 5 of his last 6 games, including the 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points against Washington today. Natchez has 6 goals, 12 assists for 18 points in 10 games, 8 power play points, 21 shots on goal. I think he might actually be up to 22 shots on goal. Here's what I'm going to say, though. This is a big bounce back from 56 points last year. But Natchez is shooting 37% at 5-on-5. So that's not going to hold. But I mean, he's playing so well, right? Like career high was 71 points 2 seasons back. We thought Natchez could do it again last year. Was disappointing. I wish Natchez was shooting more, because that would be one way to keep some of these goals coming, even after he cools off a little bit. The shots still aren't really coming, but he's playing more, like he's on the top power play, and the Canes are playing that top unit more than they have in the past. They're leaning on their top unit. So that's good. That's good news for Natchez. And I think I think point per game is within reach for all the I don't know about his shooting percentage I just said. I still could see a career high set by Natchez this season. Svechnikov, 4 shots per game through 10 games. That's fantastic. Looks good to me. And I'll just shout out another stream-worthy Carolina Hurricane in Jack Roslovic. 6 goals in 7 games heading into tonight. And coming off a 6-shot game, low time on ice, but I think, Elon, and I need to double check this, I think I saw him on the top line at some point today with Aho and Svechnikov. So that was nice to see. I'm not saying that you should, you need Jack Roslovic, but if you're in a league with the commensurate amount of depth, he might be worth adding to your watch list in a moment that you need to stream.
Yeah, he was on the top line, Roslovic. He didn't get any points today, but you do this every year, Brian. You're usually right for a short amount of time. You're always like, hey, by the way, don't forget about Jack Roslovic. And I'm like, who? He's where? He's on Carolina now? Oh, okay. And then he does something for a little while. So yeah, in a deep enough league, for sure I'm interested with anyone playing with Aho and Svechnikov. Okay, next injury. Let's go to Philly. They also have a goalie injury in Sam Ersson. I think this is a more devastating injury than the Anderson injury in Carolina, because Ersson hasn't even been that great, but he's been good enough to be 4-2-1, or I guess 4-2-2, 1 overtime loss, 1 shootout loss for whatever it's worth. And it was a winning record, or I guess you could say even record, depending on what you consider a loss. 901 save percentage, so that sounds about average-ish. Brian could correct me. But Philly, man, just the other goalies are not that good. It doesn't seem like Ivan Fedotov, who was the backup coming into the year, big name coming from the KHL, got a big contract. He's had 3 games, and Fedotov has blown up all of them. They're all really bad starts. 5 and 4 goals against. It doesn't seem like Tortorella trusts him. They have this other guy, Alexei Karlsson, who started in the minors, and now he's up. And Karlsson has played 2 games so far, and he actually had a decent game against Boston yesterday. Boston won 3-0. It was 2 goals against on 22 shots. So obviously, you can't blame Karlsson if Philly didn't score a goal. So my guess is that Alexei, maybe it's Kolosov and not Kolosov. I'll figure that out. I'm sure Ryan in the Discord, who was great on Short just a couple weeks ago, I'm sure he'll correct my pronunciation at some point. But yeah, Kolosov. I think he's the starter now on Philly. Is that good? Do you want him? I feel like I'd be scared to start him personally. But Brian, I guess sometimes people need goalies.
That's it. Just an awkward hang on. Yeah. So sometimes it's true. Sometimes some people need goalies. I find it scary to roster a Philly goalie. Sam Ersson has not been above reproach in Philly. All Philly goaltending has been awful this year. He's been the best of a very, very bad bunch. Philly is ranked 30th in the league in goals against per 60 minutes. That's actual goals against. I'm not using expected metric. That's goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. I think that's actually the fault of their goalies and not the team, who have so far combined for a league worst 5-on-5 save percentage of 874. That is terrible. Philly is not like your model defensively that every team wants to follow, but they are middle of the pack, which tells me that their goalies are letting them down. Then again, so is their offense. At 5-on-5, Philly ranks 30th in the league in expected goals per 60 minutes. Their 5-on-5 shooting percentage is bad, but so are the Flyers. So I'm so it's bad from a couple ends to want to roster a Philly goalie at the moment. The first end is that they're bad. The second end is they get no run support. So I would, I'm not that interested in Kolosov or Fedotov or really anyone in that crease until we see some measure of stability, at which point it might be too late, right? If one guy goes in and takes off. So again, if goalies are super scarce, you can sometimes people need goalies.
Yeah, like I will say, my hunch is Kolosov is going to get a bunch of starts while Ersson is out. Like I don't think Torts trusts Fedotov, so if you want some volume, I don't know who knows, but that's my guess. I'll bet you Kolosov gets 3 starts next week. Another guy on Philly I need to bring up. Such an exciting start to the season for Matvei Michkov, but all of a sudden that's kind of disappeared. He was point per game. 8 games into the season. Now he is pointless in 4 games, only 2 or 1 shots in each of those games. I mean, Philly obviously isn't scoring a ton of goals. Like I said, they just got shut out by Boston. They scored 2 goals against St. Louis. They scored 2 goals against Boston. The last time they played Boston, 3 goals the game before that. But I would have expected Michkov to be a big part of it based on what we saw at the start of the year. Is this, Brian, something where the typical question, like, is this something to be concerned about if you have Michkov and you were riding high, or should you already be like, being mad at yourself that you didn't sell high when you had the chance? Or is it like, don't worry about it. Like, he's a stud. He's figuring it out. He's a rookie. Rookies are going to hit walls at some point, but he's definitely not someone you want to, get rid of anytime soon.
I mean, I just did say like how badly Philly was doing on offense, and Michkov doesn't stand out as the exception or anything. Looking at his own individual numbers, and I'm not saying it's his fault, but even if it's not, he hasn't yet appeared able to overcome whatever Philly is trying to put together as an offensive situation. So, I would want to give him a little more time, and I don't have much on the eye test recently from Michkov too, which would be important to me. I might try and watch some clips and some games and see where he's at. But if he's still not doing anything over the next little while, I think you at least need to start considering whether you're better off dropping him.
Okay, I'm going to do ad break now, but I'm not throwing to it. Because for the patrons, the super supporters, you won't even know it happened. It's just going to be like, we're just going. But okay. But I need the point I need to say it for myself when I go edit. Okay. So, next. Couple more injuries to throw at you, Brian, before we get to some outjuries, which are a lot more fun, usually. I don't even know what to say about this one. In terms of Ilya Samsonov was missing from Vegas, but we don't know. Like, apparently he was sore. There's no timeline on when he'll be available, according to this Sinbin Vegas account that Shams and I retweet from a lot. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with Ilya Samsonov. In the meantime, makes me feel a little bit bad about having dropped Aiden Hill, because maybe he'll get a lot of starts. It'll be fun to see if Akira Schmid gets back in the net. He had some good games for New Jersey last year, if people recall. But yeah, so obviously if Hill has been dropped by dum-dums like me, now would be a great time to get him while Samsonov is hurt. I think once Samsonov is back, he was doing pretty well, right? So it might be 50-50, which was the reason I did that in the cupful, where I feel like a tandem isn't worth too much. But if Samsonov is hurt, I'd imagine Hill gets a lot of games. I wanted to bring up Vegas also because again, to talk about me. Let's make the show about me. Like I said at the start, a guy on my couple roster who started super strong made me feel like a brilliant genius. Shea Theodore had 5 points through 2 games, had a 2 point game a couple games after that. I was like, I'm great. I'm so good at this fantasy hockey. I got this guy so late. All of a sudden now Shea Theodore has been so mad lately. He's not doing anything. He has 2 assists in his last 6 games. Also, like only 1 or 2 shots. I thought that he was supposed to be kind of a volume shooter. Seems like the power play time has been going down for Shea Theodore. Looks like Vegas is going more to like 50-50 power play when before it was like a stacked top power play. What the heck, Brian? What happened?
You're
Like,
saying it like it's my fault.
yeah, why?
I mean, I know we were all riding real high on Shea Theodore's start. I'm pretty sure we mentioned that he started hot. Vegas, by the way, keeps scoring. 4 or more goals in 5 of the Golden Knights' last 6. They have been held to fewer than 3 goals just once in 12 games. That's wild. Vegas, I mean, that is part of a shooting percentage bender. Like, they are kind of mid-pack in expected goals, but they're second in actual goals scored per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Right now, that tide is not lifting Shea Theodore. His shots have been steady. That's good. I'll share some good news, bad news. The good news is Shea Theodore is still on the top power play. The bad news is that for the last 2 games, Vegas has split their power play. The time between their power plays. Like, they still have a clear top unit, but the second unit is seeing the same amount of time lately, which is also maybe like a heads up for anybody with Alex Pietrangelo or Noah Hannafin hanging around. They seem to be getting a little more power play time lately for whatever that might be worth, which is bad news for Shea Theodore. But listen, we didn't expect him to fully keep it up. It's a bummer he's a little colder than we'd like him to be. I expect him to still be mostly performing around our expectations the rest of the way, like not breaking out and going crazy, but still, some regular shots, 55, 60 points.
Okay.
Maybe that's even high when I say it out loud. Maybe closer to 55.
I was about to be like, okay, I'll take it, Brian. That's fair. Fair deal. Shake my hand. But now all of a sudden you've taken the deal back before I even got to agree to it. By the way, on the plus side, I recorded a matchup maximizer this morning. It was actually a pretty wild morning. I got parents in town, had a lot going on, but I still found my way into the office here to knock out an MM. And people who heard me record that heard that I was drooling over. Okay, that's the last mention of the word drooling on this episode. Sorry, everyone, for that visual. I'll pick another verb. What's a good Brian? You're like you've shown us before. You're good with synonyms. What's another word to say I'm really excited about a player?
Salivating.
That's kind of giving the same visual here. I've been fawning over Dorofeyev and William Karlsson. I brought them both up on Matchup Maximizer. Maybe they're even not available to you. Maybe I just annoyed people by being like, yeah, thanks for telling me about guys that I can't add anymore because I missed the boat. But yeah, Dorofeyev has been on the top power play and has been doing really well. He has 4 goals in his last 4 games. And obviously you could look at the shooting percentage and be like, high shooting percentage. But Dorofeyev, again, like the Anders Lees, like the... who was the other person I said that was shooting a lot? Oh, Svechnikov. Like he's shooting a lot. We're looking at it's been around like 3-4 shots per game over this last stretch. And if you look at the season average, it's 3 shots per game for Dorofeyev. But the first 2 games he had no shots. So I bet you if you just start on October 13th, that number skyrockets because it's a small sample size. So Dorofeyev has been great playing with Hurdle and Howden on the second line and also on the top power play, scoring a lot of goals. So he's definitely someone I would be considering. And then William Karlsson, we brought him up last week, said he's back from his injury. It's been 4 games now. He has points in all 4 games. Brian generally says that he doesn't believe in William Karlsson when he's on a hot streak and I bring him up on the podcast. So Brian, is this going to be a continuation of that tradition?
Yeah. Well, okay. Yes, but no. I think I'm learning, and I've already learned this lesson. I need to learn it repeatedly, just not to bet against Vegas. Although I think I'm more right. I'm right more often than I'm not when I'm saying don't go crazy for William Karlsson. But hey, these guys, Dorofeyev, Karlsson, always worth at least a stream. Again, I'll go back to Vegas scoring a ton of goals, more than they should. So I think when the offense sort of regresses as expected, we'll see some of the points disappear and these guys won't be quite as valuable. But while they're rolling, I know better than to bet against any member of the Golden Knights.
Okay, one more injury I'll bring up, which I don't even know. Like I've seen Braden Point left today's game for Tampa Bay, and that's like all we know. Like I don't think there's been an update yet. Shams, if he's still in the chat, can let us know if there's been anything more. Tampa Bay lost 7-4 to Winnipeg. It's kind of hard to like read too much into like mid game line changes when a player gets injured because obviously the coach didn't have much time. Like Mitchell Chaffee got on the top power play with Kucherov, Gensel, Hagel, and Hedman. So we'll see. So like keep if it turns out that Point is injured, that's like a pretty sweet spot playing with Gensel and Kucherov at even strength and on the power play. So, wait and see. There'll be a short shifts on Tuesday. Lewis will be joined once again by Elizabeth, who we're super stoked to have coming back, and hopefully they'll be able to provide us with an update. Maybe they'll just say like, "Yeah, Braden Point is fine. Don't worry about it." I'm sure Braden Point managers are hoping that will be what they say. So definitely stay tuned for what's going on in Tampa with that potential injury. Brian, let's switch over to some out juries now. Okay, let's have some fun. Let's not be bummers. Here's a soon to be out jury in Arturi Lehkonen, who is like scheduled to be. He's been taken off the IR. He's apparently coming back on Tuesday. It's basically confirmed. In the meantime, Colorado has sent down a bunch of guys like Ivan and Kovalenko, different players who got runs on top lines and top power plays with all these players injured. So we've got one guy coming back. Also, also, Nichushkin has been practicing. Apparently, he'll be back soon too. So this is pretty exciting for Avs fans finally getting some of the gang back together. Are you like really? What can you really say? This is more probably just like I'll be again for short shifts. They can let us know what the lines are, what the power plays are. But obviously, there's a lot of opportunity considering Ivan was on the top power play. No disrespect. That probably means that Lekkonen's going to be put in a pretty good spot when he returns to the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's not a whole lot of guys left to be filling in, which means that Lekkonen's walking into a good situation. Also a situation where no one's really doing anything with the opportunity they've been getting. Like Ivan, Joel Kiviranta up on the top line. They haven't done much, which makes them like we'll see what regarding those guys, regarding Ivan and Kiviranta, they still could be streamable, depending on where they fall when Lehkonen returns. But also, this is credit. I just wanted to take a moment to give credit to Ross Colton, right? Who did things, and not just anyone could do those things. I've been sort of making the case that Colton is a legit top sixer and isn't just riding coattails here. So I feel like maybe this proves the point a little bit, but also you're asking me about Lehkonen, who, yeah, he's coming back to an open spot, just waiting for him, and I hope he can start producing pretty quick. I've got him stashed in one league, and I could use the help.
Okay. And by the way, you mentioned Ross Colton. It was obviously covered on short shifts, but just to say here, really bad news for him. He broke his foot. He's out 6 to 8 weeks, so real bummer. Like he was having this huge breakout season, and now we'll see him in a couple months. Hopefully he could just come back and continue what he was doing. Let's get to some more outjuries here. Here's a fun one. Alex Barkov came back to play in Finland, and he crushed it. He's incredible. And if you recall, Brian, I was really bummed about getting sniped on Connor Bedard and having to settle for Barkov in the third round of my couple draft. I'll tell you after this week, I'm feeling less bad about that because Barkov has played 3 games now, a goal and an assist versus Buffalo, a goal and 3 assists in the first game versus Dallas, a measly assist in that next game against Dallas. So a nice little run for Alex Barkov. Obviously, he is an incredible player. So is Sam Reinhart, who I don't need to spend too much time fawning over because we clearly know, like Sam Reinhart's just someone who I didn't like fully believe in, but at this point, he's doing even better than he did last year. Like I thought last year was a bit of an overproduction, and right now Reinhardt has 21 points in 13 games for 132 point pace. So obviously people who just like reached for him anyways, quote unquote reached, just how Brian does quote unquote cold streak for Draisaitl. Like you're definitely getting a nice return from Sam Reinhart. I'm seeing a new name, Brian, of someone on the top power play. If people recall, like we were looking at Adam Boqvist going into the season, like, oh, that could be interesting. A no-name guy getting a top power play spot. In the last couple of games, someone named Uvis Balinskis has been playing on the top power play for Florida, and he's been very Adam Boqvist-esque, meaning he's done nothing, though he did get a power play assist in that most recent game against Dallas. That was his only. He didn't take a shot, right? He had one hit, so that was like the only thing really on the stat line for Balinski's. I'm gonna say Balinski's. I'll assume. Well, again, like, let's see him earn us trying to figure out how to pronounce his name for the next time we bring him up on the show. I wonder how long this will last, if this player is anything, or this will change soon. Just makes me wonder, like, is Aaron Ekblad really that bad? Like, why? He's a first overall pick. He had a run a few years back on the top power play where he looked really good, but I mean, clearly the coaching staff in Florida has made their opinion of Aaron Ekblad running a top power play pretty clear by the names they've given shots to ahead of him.
I wonder if at some point Florida circles back to Forsling, right? Like he's kind of just been like skipped over and forgotten here. Ufas Balinskis, I'm based on how other Latvian names are pronounced, Elon. I think it's the shorter I sound.
Okay.
Has no serious offensive pedigree. 28 years old, undrafted. Balinskis spent a few years each in the KHL and the Czech League before coming to North America last year, where he started with AHL Charlotte and, had 21 points in 37 games. And I'll give Balinski, I said no serious offensive pedigree. His last couple of years in the Czech League, he was over a half a point per game. I'm not sure, that's something, right? I'm watching Balinskis, but not leaping. If defensemen are gold, we know Florida can be a place where they can break out, having seen Ekblad do it eventually, right? Even though they're not giving him that opportunity now. Montour coming alive there. I'm not saying Balinskis is another Montour. I think he's probably closer to another Boqvist, but at least now he's on your radar.
Yeah, you know the name. Let's see if he can get a second game with a point in a row, which is something Boqvist wasn't able to do. Next, Outchery over in Columbus. Nice for them to get a player back in Dmitry Voronkov, who was a really nice surprise for them last season. So far, 2 games for Voronkov haven't been that great. He has no points. He's been playing on a line with Chinnikov and Fantilli, which seems like a good spot, especially based on how we previously thought of Yegor Chinnikov. But since his hot start to the season, we're looking at only 1 assist in his last 6 games. So is this a snoozer moment, Brian? I don't know if we've brought that term up yet this season, but Yegor Chinnikov, everyone's favorite free agent ad who was looking like a potential hold with his production and deployment over in Columbus. Do you think now's just a time where he's running cold, or do you think it's time to drop him and move on? Chinnikov, I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think you can move on from. 4 shots on Saturday from Chinnikov was encouraging. But aside from that, it's been a while. It's been a couple weeks since we've seen anything encouraging. And guessing, where he probably fits into your roster. That's you might be better off streaming that spot or looking for the next big thing. He still is on the top power play, right? He's still been seeing time there, so that's some reason to if you're looking for an excuse to keep Chinnikov, there it is. Columbus, by the way, 3rd in the league. I was talking about Vegas and their goal scoring. Columbus is 3rd in the league in 5-on-5 goals per 60 minutes. But like Vegas, their expected numbers show that they shouldn't quite be there. So in Columbus, I'm into guys who are on the top line and the top power play, but not beyond. So that's Kirill Marchenko, who has 12 points so far, 4 goals, 8 assists, 3 power play points, 23 shots. Cole Sillinger with 8 points. None on the power play yet, and 23 shots. And then Sean Monahan has 11 points, 6 goals, 5 assists, 3 power play points, and 36 shots on goal, which is nice to see. That's a few shots per game for Monahan, who is more rosterable than you might have realized prior to this sentence.
Yeah. Sorry. You're talking about what's his name? Monahan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Monahan's been really good, and I really expected that it could be a rough season for him with the dearth of people he'd be playing with. But it looks like he's really bounced back from those bad years in Calgary, where it's really looking like he was just hampered by injury based on how he looked last year and now this year as well. By the way, when Brian, you brought up that Patron cast before, we had a fun time talking about Cole Sillinger on the Patron cast on Wednesday. So another fun thought back I'm having. There's also some fun to be had thinking about Elvis Merzlikins. He had a moment where people were like, oh, look at Elvis Merzlikins having a little nice run. He had 1 goal against game versus Edmonton, then followed that up with a shutout against the Islanders. I'm sure a lot of people went and grabbed Elvis Merzlikins thinking, all right, maybe I just got myself a good solid starting goalie. Then Elvis led in 6 goals against Winnipeg in the next game. It was on 44 shots, so it's not like an absolutely terrible game for Elvis, but that's probably probably at least somewhere in the middle of where you're going to expect. So then Columbus went back to Tarasov for the next game, and Washington scored 7 against Columbus, 7-2 games. So yeah, Columbus is definitely not a team where you're going to want their goalie. I think even if you see a good game from Elvis, I think this is definitely something that could happen. So, buyer beware a little bit there. Next up, Brian, I guess a couple more outries before we actually, the next segment, I'm going to do some patron questions. We got a lot of fun questions from the patrons, but let's wrap up the outries here. Caden Gooley's back for Montreal, plays big minutes. We'll see if that helps Sam Montembeault get back on track. Didn't help too much in Saturday's game. There's also Montreal was moving the lines around in this loss to Pittsburgh. They put Kirby Dach middle of the game up with Suzuki and Caulfield, just like where he was when Slavkovsky was out of the lineup. Slavkovsky was playing with Newhook and Josh Anderson. I don't know. We'll see. I think Montreal's going to probably be playing with their lines a little bit, trying to find something that works. So I wouldn't, be too excited or plant my flag on any of these lines right now. Obviously, if Kirby Dach is on that top line and still on the top power play, he becomes interesting. In the meantime, Lane Hudson has really slowed down, kind of like Michkov, right? Started looking really exciting, and now all of a sudden we're looking at, there was a 2-assist game for Hudson against Washington, but that's in between 3 pointless games, and unfortunately for Hudson, when he's not getting assists, he's not really doing anything. He barely shoots, he barely hits, he barely blocks. Had a 4-block game early in the season, for what it's worth. But yeah, I wonder if Lane Hudson in a 1-year league, if it's time to consider moving on now that it's clear he's not taking top power play anytime soon.
Yeah, and I already did. So there's that. I had him in a league. I had some real FOMO after I missed him in a couple leagues. I grabbed him. I let go, I think, just over a week ago. Now I think he gave me an assist as a parting gift. But if Hudson isn't on the top power play, then I don't think you need him.
And then, the other outjury I'll mention, which is again, not fantasy relevant, Ryan Hartman back for Minnesota, but that gives us an opportunity to mention how amazing some other guys on Minnesota have been, namely Kirill Kaprizov, who is leading the league in points. It's actually a 3-way tie. Sam Reinhart, Kaprizov, and Cale Makar, all people that a lot of us could have drafted and didn't. But yeah, so Kaprizov is incredible. He actually didn't, though. Minnesota played today, and shockingly, he didn't get a point, which is becoming a big rarity for Kaprizov. Minnesota still won 2-1, and actually Ryan Hartman scored a goal. So maybe that wasn't nice of me to call him not fantasy relevant, but just seeing that it was assisted by Frederick Gaudreau makes me think that he's not getting the deployment. That's going to make him interesting. Obviously, if you see Hartman back on the top line at any time playing with Kaprizov, you pay attention. But I don't think he will, because Marco Rossi is doing really good playing on the top line. And Marco Rossi, I think, might become... I think there's a... Remember I said that there might be a record in reach last week about how Granlund may have the most points from a team who is the lowest scoring team in the league. And it turns out maybe Joe Sakic, I think, we had a patron who came up with Joe Sakic did that one season with 100-something points. So I don't think Granlund's going to beat that. Here's another record I'm looking for, Brian. This is a cupful specific record. Will Marco Rossi have the lowest fantasy points of a player who breaks 70 points ever in the cupful? Because Rossi gets a point every game, it seems. He's almost point per game. Another assist today. Rossi assisted on Boldy's overtime game-winning goal against the Leafs, but it's an assist and then a shot. He does nothing, right? He just gets an assist every single game. It's kind of I guess, a poor man's Henrik Sedin. So it's really tricky to be Marco Rossi probably should be rostered. Usually 70-plus point players should be rostered, but also his fantasy points per game is less. It's not streamer level, because usually we call 4 fantasy points per game in couples around a streamer that you want to potentially consider a hold. And Rossi's averaging 3.5 because the assist is 3. You need some of those other things to kind of get you to 4.5, get really exciting. So I don't know. It seems like he's really good, though. In real life, it looks like he's having a huge breakout season. So good for Marco Rossi is what I probably should be saying.
Yeah, but what you're saying is also true about Marco Rossi, that it's hard to I don't know if Dylan Strome has ever been this guy. Ryan Strome definitely has been. I feel like it's very Strome-esque what Rossi's doing right now, putting up great points totals without being terribly rosterable in the cupful. Although that's not the case for Dylan Strome right now. I'm not trying to make that equivalency. This is a historical one. Yeah, but you know what? If I were Marco Rossi, I think not shooting is part of my success. Let Kaprizov do it. He's doing everything great. And we got a question on the patron cast asking if there was anyone we wanted to already take a victory lap on, and I took mine on Kaprizov, saying that like I thought like I mean I still actually didn't say just how well he was going to do, but like I had a high degree of confidence that he was going to have a great season. I couldn't have predicted this great, but I'm feeling good about that. Did you mention
I'm gonna push back, Brian.
what?
If you're gonna do such a victory lap about how like sure you were about Kaprizov, then why didn't you recommend I draft him with my 6th overall pick? I don't recall
you
you
said
being
this
like,
before. Go to the chat. Go to our chat history. You will find me telling you that Kaprizov is like. I didn't tell you to draft him instead of Draisaitl because I didn't think I thought they'd still be comparable.
okay, well,
so
but
far
now
they
you're being
haven't
like,
been.
I don't know, this language you're using of I'm going to take a victory lap. How like we all
No,
knew
I was
Kaprizov was good. I don't recall you being like, trust me, this year he's leading the league in
okay.
points.
Whoa, Elon. Like I, why are
That's his
you
victory
getting in the
lap.
way of the question? Okay, on the patron cast, I also said I'm hesitant to take a victory lap, and here I thought I'd try and own it a little more. And boy, you don't want me doing that. You're like throwing banana peels on the track while I run. This was we had Trev, our accountability czar, like shared the takes that we made before the maybe the hottest takes that we made towards the end of last season and through the summer. This was one of mine that
What was it?
qualified.
What was your Kaprizov take? I forget. Wasn't it like he'll get like 110 points or something?
It was that 105 would be the starting point, and that he could pace for like 120 or more, like which is like the high end of any NHLer, right?
All right. I'm convinced.
Sheesh.
Hey,
Did you talk about Brock Faber?
no, I didn't bring
forget
up Brock
already.
Faber yet.
Okay.
Brock Faber doesn't. Remember last year it seemed like Brock Faber was getting a lot of good peripherals. Unless I'm misremembering. Now he's like not really.
You're
he's not that exciting this
misremembering.
year.
I think there was a brief run where he did, but I don't think those peripherals were really expected like they went quiet for a while. And if you're saying I didn't tell you this before, I think I have. Faber has 2 goals on 4 shots in his last 3 games, which is great. Makes up for the lack of peripherals, but he has only 1 assist in his last 5 games, and I'd like to see more of those. It seems like with Faber, the peripherals aren't ever like at this point aren't ever really going to be there. So, I mean, he's like the defense version of Rossi.
Yeah. And also, it's like in a 1-year league, I'd still be kind of interested in Faber. Like, I want the guy on the top power play in Minnesota, though. I mean, Kalen Addison has been there before and not done anything, even with the incredible Kirill Kaprizov. But I'd still like him. Like, but I don't know what the upside is. And like in a dynasty league, I'm sure like it's like Faber's on borrowed time. Like anyone who drafted Faber high in a dynasty league or like acquired him expecting now I've got like the long term, because he signed that big contract. Zeev Buim is going to take that pretty soon as he gets to the NHL. I think we're looking at like the Rasmus Anderson of the Minnesota Wild. Like he was on the top power play for a while just because they didn't have anyone else, and he gets replaced when someone comes in who could do it a little bit better. Just a hunch, Brian. Just a hunch. I guess, yeah, with Faber not getting any of those peripherals, who's been getting them? I don't know if that's how it works, but I should mention it. Jonas Brodin keeps putting up either a bunch of shots or a bunch of blocks. Sometimes he alternates. 4 shots today for Jonas Brodin. Jake Middleton has been blocking like crazy. Like 2 blocks today against the Leafs is like a low for him. Like for most players, like if you could average 2 blocks per game, you're like probably like really solid in a categories league. But yeah, Middleton has been really incredible. So definitely, if you're in a league that values blocks and also like shots from a defenseman, which always is nice. Both Brodin and Middleton looking really interesting for Minnesota, and it's not now like a short thing. It's been like over 10 games. They just kind of do it game in, game out. Okay.
I don't have anything. Do you want
That's
me
cool.
to just be like, yeah, okay.
No? Okay. Ad break time. Putting it in. Okay, Brian, I'm really excited for this next segment of this episode of our Keeping Karlsson Mega Show because we asked the patrons if they had any questions that they wanted us to bring up on the show. We had a lot of interesting things come up. I want to go first to KC Win 66, who requested for us to talk. Oh,
no, I just wanted. I forgot. I wanted to thank this Courtney for the thing you mentioned about Sakic being the highest scoring player on the worst team, like with a 100-point season. they did the research. So thank you.
And that's KC Win 66.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, incredible patron. Always like really great content over in the Discord. So let's hopefully do them the favor on the way back and give them a really good analysis of Jason Robertson. The question is that he's been moved around the lineup recently. Minutes are down a bit. Scoring just feels a little low overall. Wondering if you still think he'll be at least a point per game player rest of season. Wait, no, you didn't say still. Wondering if you think he'll be at least a point per game player for the rest of the season. Yeah, Jason Robertson, don't forget, like didn't even have the most incredible year last year. Had 80 points in 82 games, far from his 109 points in 2022-23. This year, yeah, we're looking at 7 points in 11 games for J. Rob. Only like 1 point in his last three, if you really want to zoom in. Also, the last game against Florida, only one shot. So I think one thing we really liked about Robertson in his breakout year was all of those shots. But yeah, he's averaging around like 2.7 shots per game this season, which is fine. But obviously, yeah, very far from the 3.8. So it's a good question. I wonder if just what we saw last year is more the realistic expectation, and even that would be a lot better than what he's done so far this year.
Yeah, Jason Robertson. Oh, I don't even know. I like. There's nowhere to start, but there's also there's nothing in Jason Robertson's stat line this season that leaps out as being first round or second round or even third round material. This is the second season in a row that Robertson's opened the year this way. It's ironic the one year he didn't, he missed camp. So maybe he just is tired by now. I don't know, but his time on ice is down a bit at 5-on-5, and Robertson's still not shooting at the rate or threat he was in the first 2 years, where he established himself as a high-end shooting talent, which is now 2 and 3 seasons ago for Robertson. Robertson's line has also, for the second straight year, really underperformed so far versus those 2 breakout seasons. Elon, the best theory I have for Robertson struggling, or yeah, I'm going to call it struggling because we expect a lot better for him. A lot of people invest a lot more draft capital in Robertson than this. Is he missing Pavelski? Like, Pavelski was there last year, but Pavelski also retired real quick after last season, so maybe he wasn't all there as he had been in the past. This season, Robertson had been playing mostly with Hintz and Stankoven. That didn't seem to be working too well, so now Robertson's paired up with Johnston and Dadonov the last couple games. And I just want to see something work, but I don't know. Like, I guess players like Joe Pavelski don't just come along, right? And so I wonder if there's a missing piece here that we gave or did not give enough credit to Pavelski for Robertson's success. Or maybe we just need to wait another 10 games. I'm going to wait and see, but it doesn't feel good that this is the second season in a row where we're seeing Robertson just look kind of tepid in his production relative to what we wanted to see.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think what you said really hits the nail on the head. Like, he's just not producing like someone you would have expected that you would draft like the first, second, maybe even third round. Like, he's good, but yeah, I think that maybe he's just not the big superstar that people were expecting. But to be fair, like Patty is saying in the chat here, Dallas Stars are good at hockey and suck at fantasy. That's the way they play, and that hasn't always been the case. But this year, like, they have such a nice balanced top nine. You maybe wonder if like there's just not enough to go around. Or like just everyone, it's hard to really break out. Though, don't tell that to Matt Duchene, who is right now like just scorching like crazy, 12 points in his last 6 games. But again, like I don't expect that to keep up, and probably Matt Duchene will still have a solid season, but he'll go down. So maybe some of those points could go to someone else. But there's a lot of good players on this team that need ice time and opportunities. Yeah, like we also had Ross, 10,019. A lot of number patrons wanting to ask about the Dallas Stars here. Wanted us to also talk about Rope Hintz, and Hintz, like, yeah, he's like fine, like 8 points in 11 games. It's a 60-point pace. If he ends the season with a 60-point pace, it's a disappointment probably for people who drafted him expecting closer to 70. Like last year, he paced for 67. But yeah, in that big J-Rob year, Hintz also paced for 84. He was above point per game. So I wonder if that's just not something he can do. And to be fair, like Wyatt Johnston, someone who I expected a huge year from, and now he's he has been cold. Like he got an assist in that last game versus Florida. Maybe that's the start of something. I do expect some of those Duchesne and Sagan points recently to maybe transfer over to Wyatt Johnston. Like I don't think he's this bad. Right now Johnston only has 6 points in 11 games. But yeah, Brian, is it fair to just think there's a cap? Like maybe just like point per game is maybe going to be the cap on what to expect from a Dallas Stars player this year?
Maybe like Rope Hintz also hasn't found the form that he had when he set his career highs or set out to set career highs in 20 from 2020 2021. Oh, so many 20s, all the way up to a couple seasons ago. Hintz had 3 great seasons, and there was no indication that he was going to fall off going into last season, and yet he did. And this season, you know what? Hintz still looks good at 5-on-5 this year. His line doesn't, but he does. And I think what's putting Hintz off is that he has just one power play point in 11 games. And that's really, that might be the only reason why Hintz is not on a 70-point pace at this point. So I'm actually not as worried about Hintz as I am about Robertson. Like I think Hintz is right now on track to get closer to what we hoped for from him than Robertson. And like you said, point per game still might be the top end. I'm not even really expecting that from Hintz though. Even though we wanted to expect that at the start of the season before this one.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And Brian, you've always loved Matt Duchene. So do you want us to take a moment to comment on this incredible start to the season?
I wouldn't dare, because then you'll tell me I didn't tell you to draft him.
No. I was wrong. I'm just trying to be spicy here on the show. Like we just introduced this new perk for patrons. I want to like really make it an exciting episode. So I'll be back to my normal like docile self starting now. I promise. Matt Duchene, Brian, come on, you love that guy. And I love you for loving him.
Okay, great. You know what? I'm gonna, but I haven't been as high on Matt Duchene the last couple of years while he's been doing well.
How dare you?
As I was before when he wasn't. So my timing is off with Matt Duchene, and I'll cop to that. But yeah, he and Sagan seem to just be able to make things happen even when they shouldn't completely. Although they still kind of should. Like, still very talented hockey players, clearly, who've been getting a little more than they deserve, but for long enough that I'm not expecting them to stop seeing it anytime soon.
All right, the next question we had was from Tom's, another cold streak player, wanting us to talk about Buchnevich, who is not doing too much. We've also had a lot of patrons complaining about the production they've gotten from Jordan Kyrou. I wonder if, and I feel like this is not something that's, you don't have to be too big of a detective to maybe conclude that Rob Thomas being out of the lineup has not been good for the St. Louis Blues players. Yeah, Kyrou, by the way, did score today versus Toronto, so that's nice, and had 5 shots. That broke a 3-game pointless streak, so we'll see if that's the start of something for Kyrou. Buchnevich had a goal also. So yeah, look at that. St. Louis scored twice, I believe. I think it was a 2-1 game. No, what am I talking about? It was a 4-2 game. It was yesterday also. What am I even talking about? Okay, let me just start this whole thing over again. Yeah, because I wouldn't know where I'd cut in there, so I'll just say the whole thing. We had a question from Tom's wanting us to talk about Buchnevich, another cold streak that they're a little bit concerned about. And yeah, Pavel Buchnevich has been cold. We've also had a bunch of patrons on the Discord a little bit concerned about Jordan Kyrou and his lack of production lately. And look, I don't think you have to be a detective to come to the conclusion that maybe Rob Thomas being injured is not good for the St. Louis Blues and their players. He's obviously like a really good distributor and helped a lot of people get points, including himself. Yeah, like look, Buchnevich and Kyrou both scored a goal versus Toronto yesterday, for what it's worth. So maybe that's the start of a bit of a run. But look, you look at these line mates. They've been split up, by the way. Kyrou's playing with Dylan Holloway and Braden Shen. Buchnevich has been playing with Saad and Jake Neighbors. Both of those guys are on the top power play. I'm sure you can give us some numbers of how that top power play isn't doing too well. Like I take a look at also like a Justin Falk, who people were super excited about going into the season. Falk's been totally silent. He had 3 good games to start the year, and then since then, 1 assist in his last, what is this, 8, 9 games? He's not doing anything. In fact, like it looks like you've got Colton Parayko, who somehow is still able to continue to produce for St. Louis, and kind of like no one else. I wonder, like, is this just oh, and by the way, Broberg is hurt. So Parayko, does that mean, let me just check quickly who got the power play. I didn't have that prepared in the last game. Yeah, Colton Parayko got second power play for what it's worth. So normally that was going to Philip Broberg. So yeah, is there, I don't know, is there any like hope for St. Louis right now to pick up the pace until Rob Thomas comes back?
I don't know. I don't think so. Um, yeah, I like prove me wrong, please. But yeah, St. Louis, they scored four against Toronto on Saturday night, and that's just the second time in 6 games that the Blues have scored more than 2 goals. And I don't know that I'm going to expect a whole lot better. Elon, you're right about the power play being terrible. They're one of those teams that's been down there with Edmonton. Buchnevich, particularly, he looks bad. I don't know what the deal is. This is the second year with Coach Drew Bannister. Um, I think Buchnevich is super talented, but I'm not seeing like I had him in one league, and I'm a little desperate for left wing in another. I'm like, oh, maybe Buchnevich is a good buy low target. He's done well for me in the past, and I'm just staying away. I cut him loose in one league, and I'm not going to try and buy low on him. I'm just not seeing a whole lot of reason to be optimistic for Buchnevich or the offense entirely on St. Louis. They're also 4 for 30 on the power play, and they've played one more game than Edmonton. But more importantly, at 5-on-5, their expected goals, they rank 28th in the league, and they rank 31st in the league if you include all situations. So that just their power play actually drags them down relative to the rest of the league. Seattle is the only team with fewer expected goals in all situations. And I mean, they were shut out today by Boston, so that tracks. Do you want me to talk about Pareko at all?
No, you don't need to if you have nothing to say. Okay.
Since we're editing, I'll toss it in. As for Pareko, I haven't seen. He's 31 years old. I don't think this is a breakout. It's a nice bonus what you've gotten from him. Like if this happened in games like 32 to 36, it'd be like, oh, that's great. But it would be surrounded by a lot of just what you would normally expect from Pareko, which isn't a whole lot of offense. And that's it. So it's seeing it in this moment of the season. Oh, is it different? I don't think it is. I think it's pretty amazing that Pareko's doing this well. Nobody else in St. Louis is producing.
Yeah, well, especially this game against Toronto. 2 goals, 1 assist, along with his 3 blocks, 2 shots. So obviously a big game for anyone who has Pareko on their team. They're obviously really happy with that. Maybe a week-winning game from Colton Pareko. So lucky you. Brian, you have him, right? On your cupful team. You must have
I
enjoyed that.
do, and he just
Congratulations.
about saved my week for me on
Woo!
Saturday. Yeah, very
Congrats.
thankful to Colton Pareko.
Lewis from Short Shifts asked, "Who the heck is Adam Gaudette, and why does he have 6 goals?" Yeah, this is a player on the Ottawa Senators. For people who don't know, and yeah, Gaudette scored a goal versus Seattle yesterday. He scored a goal versus the Rangers the game before. He scored 2 goals versus the Blues the game before that. So yeah, nice little run for Adam Gaudette, aged 28. And I'll be honest, Brian, I don't know too much about him. I know he played previously on St. Louis, who we just talked about. He's played on a lot of teams. Are you buying into this awesome hot streak by Adam Gaudette on your Ottawa Senators?
Adam Gaudette saw former Ottawa Senator Mark Kastelik doing what he was doing in Boston. Just wanted to keep up and say, no, I'm the right guy for this fourth line job in Ottawa. Don't miss him. That's I mean, the comparison's intentional. I wouldn't expect a whole lot. Adam Gaudette, 5th round pick, 149th overall, drafted by Vancouver in 2015. Picked one. I mentioned 149th. Picked 148th in that draft. Troy Terry. I wonder if Vancouver would have taken Troy Terry if he was still on the board. Also, Adam Gaudette is from Braintree, Massachusetts, whose name I didn't look into, but I am curious what you call someone from Braintree. Brain. I'm not gonna. I could make a cheesy
Okay.
guess. I'm not going to. But if you know, I'd be curious to know. This has got its second time in the Ottawa Senators organization. He's a fourth liner who's scored 6 goals on his last 13 shots, and he's gotten those 13 shots in 5 games. Usually, it would take him like twice as long to get 13 shots, and forget about how long it would take him to get all those goals. So, listen, it's thanks and see you later to anyone who's rostering Adam Gaudette.
Yeah, for sure. Just had to bring him up, of course. Also, by the way, another Ottawa Senator putting up some surprising production. How about Anton Forsberg, who shut out Seattle yesterday? He also shut out Utah a couple weeks back. It's Forsberg's second shutout in his last 3 games. Sandwiched in between was not as great 4 goals against game against Colorado. But hey, you know what? letting in 4 goals against Colorado isn't too bad compared to what some other teams have done. So I think Anton Forsberg is showing that he's not done yet. Like obviously Linus Ullmark is the starter and he's going to get a lot of games. I guess Forsberg is playing for being someone that people will consider streaming when he starts, and it wasn't looking like that at the start of the year. But there was a time when Anton Forsberg was showing himself to be a pretty decent goalie. So nice. I'm sure the Ottawa Senators are really happy that they've gotten now, what is it, 4 games in a row where their goalies have been really good. That's good. You don't say that. You haven't heard that too often about the Ottawa Senators over the past couple of years.
Let me tell you something else about the Ottawa Senators. Remember when Allmark was traded to Ottawa? It's like, oh well, he's gonna have to really, really work hard given the Ottawa defense. And I was making the case like, listen, not a huge change from Boston, and they've got a new coach coming in, Travis Green, who's known for his systems. And look at them now. The Ottawa defense ranks 6th in the NHL in expected goals against. And for those keeping track at home, Boston ranks 18th. So Allmark's workload is actually easier in Ottawa than it would have been in Boston. He's struggling with it though, and yeah, Anton Forsberg. Elon, I don't know what you like. I'm not coming at you or anything, but I feel like you might have said like, and finally showing the form like that we thought he could have. I don't think Forsberg has ever really proven that he can be like a whole lot better than a backup goalie in the league. He's been fine so far, but I don't expect him to like be sustainably fine, like someone I would want on my roster and starting every game, because I feel like he's gonna blow up like regularly enough to wash out some of the good that he does.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know what you think I said. Like, I think that he is like, I think it's nice that Ottawa has a good backup goalie and a great starting goalie. And if Forsberg could just be reliable to not be blown up every time he plays, so they don't have to run Allmark into the ground, I think it's a pretty good situation for them to be in. I said that there was a time when we were wondering if Forsberg could be more. It was 2021-22, and Anton Forsberg played 46 games, had a 917 save percentage. That's what earned him his current contract, which I think they're on the last year of now. But I don't think he's a starter. I agree. But if he can be a solid backup, that's really great for the Ottawa Senators, because they've barely ever even had a good starter.
It's true.
Yeah. But yeah, short shifts guys talked about Brady Tkachuk and Stützle and Giroux going off, so I don't think we have to tread on that again. But obviously those guys are going really hot right now. I'll mention for the line combinations, not that anything has come from it yet, but Ridley Gregg was playing with Stützle and Brady Tkachuk at even strength in the last game. He hasn't done anything yet, but I feel like if you're playing with Stützle and Brady Tkachuk, probably you'll get some points at some points, or if you're in like a deep league. And also that, you get some hits sometimes from Ridley Gregg, so someone just to keep your eye on. And I guess just to pour a little cold water, Brian, you're talking about how great the defense has been. Maybe Jake Sanderson has been focusing a little too much on defense lately and not as much on offense, because after his incredible start, I don't know, he slowed down a little bit. Only 2 assists in the last 6 games for Jake Sanderson. Do you think this is just a variance thing? He's still on that top power play, which has been a really good power play, right? And with all these great players, I don't know. I'm just like mentioning it. Like I'm not. I don't want people to think that I'm concerned about Jake Sanderson. But if you're concerned about Jake Sanderson, Brian, I assume you're going to say don't be.
Just worth it. It's worth a mention. But yeah, also like that Jake Sanderson remains entrenched on the top power play is really like all like. I'm still feeling happy that we don't need to have that conversation. He's still shooting, like he has 3 shots in each of his last couple games, and before that he had assists in 2 games straight. So Jake Sanderson is never, I'm not sure he's at a point yet where he's going to really like differentiate himself from someone like Brock Faber, who we mentioned earlier. I think there's a better chance he will like be peripherally helpful or consistently helpful to your fantasy roster than Brock Faber. But there's still going to be these moments that we're in right now, and I would just hold on if you can handle it.
Oh yeah, I mean, you want the top power play guy on Ottawa. Jake Sanderson is gonna be just fine. He's gonna go off any game now, I'm pretty sure. Lewis also said you could toss in some OV appreciation if you want. Yeah, man, Ovechkin. What is the one year I drafted him? Made me tear my hair out. Now, this year, Ovechkin has 7 goals and 7 assists in 11 games. He's currently on pace to break Gretzky's record this season if he keeps this up. He had a goal in each of his last 4 games, actually 2 goals in one of those games against the Rangers. Ovi's just doing Ovi things. It's incredible. He's 39 years old. on pace to have one of his better career seasons. It's just, what can you even say about the guy? Also, by the way, Connor McMichael I think we brought him up like a week or two ago, saying like he's looking pretty good, but like he's looking like really, really good. Like we're talking now 7 goals also for Connor McMichael in 11 games. He went on a big goal scoring streak, and like it was with shots. There was a 10-shot game, there was a 5-shot game, there was a 4-shot game. So I think Connor McMichael might be for real, and he's been getting top power play, by the way, recently. So it's not even like just like producing with bad deployment. Like if Connor McMichael is going to be top 6, top power play, he's not playing with Ovechkin, but he's playing, with Dubois and Tom Wilson, or maybe you should say Dubois and Tom Wilson are playing with Connor McMichael at this point.
Yeah,
he looks pretty great.
This guy, Connor McMichael, he I don't know, like the way I had Connor McMichael in my head, he was supposed to be the guy who showed up too late to be a part of anything. Like the one prospect in the Washington Capitals pipeline who's there to mop up after all the stars have left and there's nobody else in the pipeline because they've just been dealing everyone away. But everyone in Washington is good. And he's a part of it, Connor McMichael. He does have 6 goals on 21 shots in his last 5 games. But that also includes like a 10-shot game against the Rangers back on Tuesday. And anyone who can do that has our attention, right? He has spent time, McMichael, on the top power play, though today it looks like he was bumped by Strome, which doesn't seem to be a huge deal. Like he has no power play points anyway. He's doing he's doing great at 5-on-5 of firing pucks with quality and quantity that should lead to goals. He's playing as much as Alex Ovechkin, which says a little bit about McMichael and also says a little bit about Ovechkin. And Elon, I actually I was expecting to be like to the throw part of it to be like, oh, can Ovechkin keep it up? I don't know if we're taken for granted that this is going to continue. Like, oh, first off, what the hell? Like I was I was against Ovechkin this week, and I saw that Washington was playing again today, and I was just like beside myself. He was a freaking one-man wrecking crew this week. So feels good to have him. I was looking into his numbers. He's down to 12 minutes a night at 5-on-5 as an old man. That's 2 minutes per night less than he was playing last year. But Ovechkin, in the time he's on the ice, is shooting the lights out. His shot attempts per 60 dipped a little bit last year. They're back up now, and Ovechkin is presently putting up the highest expected goals rate of his career since his sophomore season in 2008-2009. And his line is super effective. They're scoring even more than they should, though. 26. Oh, no, that's Ovechkin. Ovechkin is shooting 26% at 5-on-5. He only has 3 power play points, so maybe he should get a couple more of those. But regression is probably going to hit Ovechkin harder at 5-on-5 than it'll help him on the power play. I'm going to get, I don't know, you can tell me how spicy this is. I was someone who did not want to draft Ovechkin this season, and maybe I need to drop that. But in the moment, I'm not ready to drop it yet, and I would be trying to sell high. Although left wing are really hard to get, so like that's the other piece, depending on your format. But this might be a moment to say to see what else you can get
like
for
what?
Ovechkin.
Like who are you? If you have Ovechkin who's got goals every game, doing his thing, like who are you reaching for here?
Yeah, well, one thought at one point for me was like Jason Robertson, but I wouldn't do that. Like I wouldn't trade him for someone who's struggling, like Pedersen, or who's like in the same sphere. I don't know. I would dangle. I'm sorry. I'm not great at actually like pulling off the trade, but I feel like the value I'm trying to offer here is I think Ovechkin might be at the peak of his value this season. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
I'll just do like, not that I disagree, but like obviously the counterpoint is like you never want to not believe in Ovechkin. You don't want to let like some underlying percentages like sway you into thinking he's not going to score goals because he's Alex Ovechkin and he'll figure out a way to score goals anytime you start to doubt him, it seems. And I really thought that maybe this year was going to be one of those years where he's going to struggle a bit more, but so far not so much. Andrea brought up how Lafreniere is still rocking it in LA. Trust me, I know. I traded him. I should not have done that. And it's also like I was thinking at the time when I traded him, he was playing on the third line. Now he's playing with Quinton Byfield, which I don't know if that's good or if that's bad. Like Quinton Byfield has been a bit of a disappointment this season, only 5 assists in 12 games. But yeah, like obviously it's looking good for Laferriere, and we'll see how long he can keep this up. Brian Quinton Byfield. I think I asked you this last week, so I don't know if I need to keep asking you this, but he's still cold. He had 1 assist in his past 3 games. We'll see if Byfield can improve this week. I assume you're not wavering yet on your love for Byfield. He's still not on the top power play. I wonder if that's just going to be like the longer it goes with Byfield off PP1, especially when he's not like really knocking on the door, like making it seem as if like he really deserves to be there. I wonder if just like maybe he's not going to be there this season, and that's just going to be how it goes.
Yeah, that might just be how it goes. It might not be we thought he'd be on the top power play, and we thought that would sort of wash out what he was going to lose an opportunity at 5-on-5. And right now he's getting the short end of the stick both ways. So yeah, it's not a great season for Quinton Byfield, or it's not starting that way. I still think it could evolve in a way that's helpful to Byfield, or that he can still be rosterable throughout while he's in this position. But yeah, the breakout is going to have to wait.
Yeah, the player who is breaking out, aside from Laferriere on LA, holy cow, Brandt Clark. I really wish I bid more fab on him on that day one. I think I got outbid by a hefty amount, but it was worth every penny. This guy is incredible. He's up to now 11 points in 12 games after his 3 assist game against Vegas. He didn't get a point against Chicago on Saturday, but he did take 6 shots and had 3 blocks. So this isn't like one of the, it seemed like maybe Brandt Clark was like, yeah, maybe he'll be on power play 1, but he'll like get an assist. The Adam Boakvist, Valskinis. I already forgot that guy. The other guy.
Balinskis.
Yeah, like that's not that. Like Brandt Clark is great, and he's just seems like he's just getting started. I now wonder if like when Drew Doughty comes back, if he gets that spot. I guess it's a long time. We'll have to see if he continues it. But holy cow! Congrats to anyone who took the chance on Brandt Clark. It didn't look too incredible at the start of the season, but yeah, with these shots picking up, he's also had a 5-shot game. He had another 6-shot game earlier in the year. That's what you want to see from a top power play defenseman. He's great.
Yeah, showing up Brock Faber and rewarding anyone who showed some enthusiasm in going to get Brandt Clark when Drew Doughty went down, and maintained that enthusiasm even through a few very quiet starting outings.
And speaking of defensemen who are really going off right now, Andrea said how D are strange this year. Pietrangelo, Parayko, Pionk, the 3 Ps are producing big time. I want to talk about Neil Pionk, who there was a time when we were excited about him in fantasy. Like when he was on the Rangers, he was like getting a lot of points and also like really kicking butt with the peripherals, with the hits and blocks and shots. This year, Neil Pionk has just gone off. He had no points today against Tampa Bay, but again, he had no points. We had 3 shots, 3 hits, and 5 blocks. We totally made up for it, just like Brandt Clark in his last pointless game. And overall, still Neil Pionk over a point per game, 13 points in 12 games. Like, what could I have? Like, what did we miss?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know. I don't know.
How's this happening?
I think what we missed is that you want everyone on Winnipeg who's playing significant ice, like who's seeing significant ice, and Neil Pionk is one of those guys. It's like with Parayko, it's like the return of the non-offensive offensive defenseman. Pionk, by the way, is shooting more on the whole. Like he's actually changed a little bit about what he does, but is also benefiting from some favorable percentages. Pionk also has 4 power play points in 12 games from the second unit. And himself is shooting 10%. So he's going to regress, but like regressions should still leave him rosterable, especially if he can keep putting up some peripherals. But yeah, Winnipeg has just been incredible, and there are a lot of people benefiting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can talk about Nino Niederreiter. He's been going off. Obviously, they're like at the top of the lineup. Kyle Connor is starting off with a career year. He's got 19 points in 12 games, 9 goals in those 12 games. So we'll see if Kyle Connor can keep this up. I recall at one point earlier in the year, Brian, I talked to you about Nikolai Ehlers' hot start, and people were excited about Ehlers because he was getting top power play, and he also like started strong. He had that 2-goal, 1-assist game against San Jose like 4 games into the year. I recall that you were predicting that he wasn't going to be be able to keep it up. Maybe you weren't able to foresee like all of these Winnipeg goals, like you're saying. Do you still feel the same way now that we're 12 games into the year and Nikolai Ehlers is sitting at 17 points in 12 games? He had 3 goals and an assist versus Columbus on Friday, followed that up with a goal and an assist versus Tampa Bay today. Like, do you want to update your Nikolai Ehlers take, or are you going to double down?
Uh, I don't. You know what? I'm not sure. I'm gonna reserve another little while. Like Ehlers has scored 6 goals on his last 19 shots, and he's actually producing the same at 5-on-5 as always. But Ehlers has always been like a high end 5-on-5 producer, which is how he stays relevant despite no power play time. This year on the top power play, he's got 5 power play points in 12 games, shooting 30% on the power play. And Elon, yeah, I am starting to believe that. You know what? I am gonna say I think I got Ehlers wrong. I'm not. I was. I wasn't saying. Yeah, I was saying I wasn't ready to buy in yet, and I'm ready to buy in. That Ehlers at 5-on-5, he looks as good as always, and that's really all you need. And the top power play is the gravy we've been desperately waiting for.
Yeah. So yeah, congrats to anyone who drafted Ehlers. I don't know if it's like, and you know what, I think this is going to go down as like a contract year narrative, but like it's also just top power play narrative. And lucky for him that Winnipeg decided to juice him up a little bit by finally giving him what we've all been waiting for so long. I'll throw another name out at you over in Winnipeg. Not a very unsung position on Winnipeg is the backup goalie. Though, if we recall last year, Laurent Brossoit was like your best spot start, like one of the best like spot start. Whenever he got a start, he was like a really solid guy to add in fantasy. You knew he was like very likely to get a win, have a good game. Maybe it's too early to say, but Eric Comrie not looking too bad so far. 3 games, 3 wins for Eric Comrie. Like, yeah, this Winnipeg team is looking really good. I don't know if Comrie is as good as Laurent Brossoit, but he's rocking a 914 save percentage in his 3 games. Maybe he'll continue to get like 1 game a week. Maybe that's a little too high, but I don't know, like 3 games every 4 weeks. So I don't know. Just like he seemed really cooked when he was in Buffalo, but that might have just been a Buffalo thing. And Eric Comrie was good back when he was on Winnipeg, and now he's back on Winnipeg, and obviously he likes it there. They like him. He's locked in also for this year and next year. Hellebuck's the guy, but for a spot start, I think Eric Comrie is looking like I'll take him over Philip Forsberg. Sorry, Anton Forsberg, I should say. Like I said before, if I'm looking at a goalie for just a game, just to get 1 game, then move on, Comrie would definitely be near the top of my list of backup goalies that I'd be interested in if they were announced to get the start.
I mean, you're talking about the backup goalie on the what's been the best team in the league through the opening stretch. So yeah, I don't think I think that's a pretty good call. I don't have much to contend with. Like I will say, we've been sort of salivating over Winnipeg a little bit here, and I'm not sure they're not going to quite keep up exactly what they're doing. I don't know that they're quite as good as they've looked. But hey, while they're winning, then yeah, I would happily spot start their backup goalie.
Yeah, in my main dynasty league, there's like no goalies available who are like starters or backups. Like there were like literally no goalies available who have played this year except for Eric Comrie. He was the only one in free agency. So I just made a trade. I traded Karel Vejmelka to make room, and I've believed in Vejmelka for a while. I think I'm finally moving on from him. I got a pick for Vejmelka, and then I just picked up Eric Comrie to fill that spot. I feel like I have a similar guy at this point. Maybe I'll get more wins from Comrie, plus I got the pick that I got for Vejmelka, so pretty happy with that little swap I made. We'll see how that turns out. One last thing I want to talk about in terms of questions or comments from the patrons before we end the show with some hot and cold streaks. We had a trade, which was, of course, discussed on Short Shifts, but Timothy, and we have a new pronunciation here, Liljegren, has been traded to the San Jose Sharks from the Leafs, and it looks like Liljegren got right on to the top power play. By the way, thanks to Ryan Downey, who gave us that pronunciation, that apparently he wants a harder J sound when people say Liljegren. So now we know, and hey, if he wants us to talk about him and say his name properly, he just has to start producing, and obviously it'll help to be on the top power play in San Jose. In his first game, nothing too much to show for it in this loss to Vancouver, this 3-2 loss. But hey, Liljegren, my mistake, Liljegren, 1 shot, 1 hit, 1 block. He was +2 though, and I know that we're not like the types to like talk big about plus minus, but just goes to show he was like there when points happened, could have lucked into an assist, or maybe he didn't even luck. I didn't watch it, right? Like maybe he passed to someone who passed to someone. Maybe he got it started, and in a lot of plays that could end up being a point that he gets. So obviously, I'd be keeping my eyes on Lil Jagrin, and if you're in a deep enough league where defensemen are hard to get, top power play, right? And Jake Wallman was looking really good. He had 2 3-point games. It was looking really good. He had a 3-game point streak that just ended. I wonder now if this is going to be a threat. We talked about Jack Thompson on the podcast getting top power play over Jake Wallman and being like, oh, maybe we should be concerned about him. And then all of a sudden Jake Wallman was like, how dare you? And then went off for a little bit. We'll see if Lil Jagrin poses a more serious threat this season than Jack Thompson did for Jake Wallman. Obviously, I'd be a little bit concerned. Though Wallman will probably still get a lot of time and get his blocks and whatever. But yeah, interesting. New top power play quarterback. Doesn't happen all the time.
Doesn't happen all the time, and I don't think I can really get with this Lil Jagrin thing. I'm just gonna. I don't know.
Fake news.
I don't know whether it's real or not. Anyway. Worth a shot, right? As a power play quarterback. I'm not sure how great it is to be the power play quarterback on San Jose, but like you said, it's not every day you get a new power play quarterback. So this is one.
And I'll say one more thing about San Jose. Macklin Celebrini could be back next week. So keep your eye on him. We'll get some new lines. It'll be fun to see if he can keep up what he started to do in his one game so far this season. Ad break, the last one of the show. Brian, I want to go now to some hot and cold streaks to end the season. A couple cold streaks I'm interested to get your takes on. One is Connor Bedard, who actually you brought up to me as someone we should bring up on the show. I should mention that Bedard is playing right now. Chicago is beating the Anaheim Ducks 3-0 at the end of 2 periods, and Bedard has 2 assists. So maybe he even just saw our show notes somehow and was like, wanted to, cut that off at the head. What's it saying? Put a head that off at the start. There's an idiom in there that I'm blanking on right now. But yeah, before today, Bedard was pointless in 3 straight games. I was excited to come on the show and be like, try to get him for cheap. But I don't know. Yeah, it's 2 assists, 4 shots. It is against Anaheim, though. So maybe it's just like easier for such a talent to go off a little bit against bad teams. He's been having some trouble, obviously getting points against the better teams this year. Overall, even with these 2 points, we're at 11 points in 13 games on the year, which is good. But, for where people were drafting him, they were hoping for like a 90-ish. I thought he was going to be like a 90-point player this year. Obviously, it's, not too late. Like, it's only 13 games into the year. Where are you currently at with Connor Bedard?
Well, I was worried going into tonight. He had just 2 points in 7 games, both of them goals. I'm glad that Bedard has a couple of assists tonight. Something to get moving. And now Bedard is trying to catch up to his 74-point pace from last year. This brings him to a 69-point pace on the season. I'm just, I don't know, Elon. Like I want to expect more from Bedard. Like I see that while he's on the ice, Chicago shoots 6%, which we should expect better. I think I'm just getting a little anxious. Like 7 games is a long time to see very little. So it's nice to see him do something against Anaheim tonight. Even on the power play, like we thought the power play might be a little... So you know what? It is better, but he's not producing any more than he was before. He has yet to score on the power play, which I think is only a matter of time. I just haven't been seeing the returns that we wanted to see quite yet. And the shots have been there, but like they've been so the last week or two when we want to regularly see like a 5, a 6, a 7 shot game, which he did over the first couple weeks, but then stopped doing for the last couple. So just wanted to raise Connor Bedard, keep it like, I don't know how much you really want to do about it. I have him on my team and I'm happy to keep waiting. But I'm not like so happy to keep waiting. I'd really like him to start showing that he can take a step forward from the mid 70-point pace he put up last season.
Well, you said before with Ovechkin sell high. Does Bedard count?
Yeah.
It's kind of a fun trade.
That is a very fun trade. And I wonder if you can, because assuming Ovechkin was drafted before Bedard in drafts too, maybe you can ask for a little.
But I don't think so. In Cupful, Ov was going in like round 4. Bedard was going in round 3.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
I could have drafted Ov when I took Matt Barzal. Kind of regretting that one a little bit.
Yeah, I bet you are.
We have a question, by the way, from Mason. Was wondering, based on this Bedard cold streak, but you have both of these guys. But imagine you didn't. Would you sell Nico Hischier for Bedard? Hischier obviously going off himself, 10 points in his last 7 games, scores almost every game. He's got 10 goals in 14 games. Nico Hischier over in New Jersey. So that would be a classic, I guess, buy low, sell high. Bedard was drafted ahead of Hischier in like all leagues, but at this point, Hischier's just looking so amazing. That would be a hard trade for me to be willing to do. But I do love that. Like, I love both of their upsides, though.
Yeah, I think their upside is probably pretty similar. And like Heishier saying like 10 goals, and it's like, oh, he must be shooting like crazy. His shooting percentage? No, actually. His shooting percentage, I mean, he's shooting over 20%. So it's a little high, but he's generally like a 14-ish% shooter. So it's not like completely out of line. And 4 of Heishier's goals have come on the power play too, to help boost that shooting percentage. So would I do Bedard for I have them both, so I don't have to think about this too much. But if I had Hischier, would I trade him for Bedard? Yeah, I think you could win that deal. But I also don't think you need to go ahead and do that. Like, I'm not sure. I wouldn't feel compelled to go and do that. I think I'd just be happy to keep Hischier and see him continue be on track for the upside that we expect Bedard to have too.
Yeah, I think they're both like probably good bets for like I think Heishier's a good bet for 90 points this year. Like I don't think it's like I don't know what you're really gaining in this year. Maybe in a keeper league, of course, it's a little bit different. By the way, I should mention the Chicago lines. It's changed up a lot, and it'll probably change up again. So you don't want to buy too much in. But right now, Bedard's been playing with Kurashev and Ryan Donato, and I should mention Ryan Donato has also been on the top power play. He's also on a crazy hot streak, 6 points in Donato's last 5 games going into today, and today 2 periods in, 3 shots, no points yet, but a hit for Ryan Donato. So he's a guy that we brought up at the start of last year we were interested in, and then he totally fell off and was nothing. Look at him now. Top line, top power play on Chicago. I feel like for as long as it lasts, and it might not last long, like why not? Right? Especially if he's shooting like he has been.
Yeah. Ryan Donato, you know what? I was trying to find value in Chicago. I think they, I can't remember at what point this week they had a good streaming schedule. And I was looking for someone. They have a really weird mix of how they're like setting up their lines between top power play and not. Like Lucas Reichel is on the top power play, but the 4th line. Ryan Donato is on the tonight. He's playing with Bedard on the top line and top power play, and he's the only one in that situation. The others are Bertuzzi, who's playing on I'll call line 2. And Teravainen's on line 3 and power play 2. Everyone's getting all mixed up. It's pretty hard to find someone who's in a really great situation in Chicago, which is kind of a bummer because we thought with Connor Bedard there'd be at least a couple guys consistently playing with Bedard, top line and top power play, but unfortunately not. But in the meantime, yes, thank you for mentioning Ryan Donato.
Okay. We have another cold streak that I wanted to bring up here. Adam Fox. Andrea wanted us to talk about Adam Fox, actually. Like he's not doing terribly. Like if you look at the overall points, it's like 9 assists in 11 games. No goals, though. Like Adam Fox scored 17 goals last year. So he's definitely falling far behind that. Also, if you look, like, first of all, like this 9 points, 6 of them have come just in 2 early games of the year. He had 2 3-assist games, but since October 17th, it's been either like no assists or 1 assist, kind of like half and half. And there's also kind of like a Marco Rossi, Brock Faber, like no periffs. We're getting like 1 or 0 hits and like 0 or 1 blocks most games. For Adam Fox, this is a guy people were drafting super high, and right now, yeah, he's been super meh. So I'm curious if you think this is like a buy low opportunity or maybe just what you should expect from Adam Fox. Actually, I'll throw 2 at you at once. Another New York Ranger that's definitely not producing the way I expected. It's really surprising considering how well his line mates are doing. How is Vincent Trocheck so cold? He's really like not doing much, and he started so hot, so it's kind of wild how he went from like looking like such a steal, and now he scored today. Actually, I wrote this up before today where he scored a goal, so maybe we can disregard. But yeah, Trocheck before that had only 1 assist in 5 games. Do you think that was just like a random cold streak, nothing to worry about? I'm looking at the Rangers line, so they have switched things around. It's kind of interesting. As Zibanejad, Panarin, and Lafreniere was a line, and then Trocheck, Cooley, and Riley Smith, and then Chris Kreider with Hedel and Kakko. Wow. They don't change things
Big
up
changes.
too often.
No, they
Yeah,
don't.
and they won against the Islanders. Maybe it'll last for a little while.
Yeah, I'm pausing because I don't know what's going on with Adam Fox. The game's over, right? The Rangers and
Yeah,
Islanders.
yeah.
Yeah, that
They
game's
destroyed the
over.
Islanders.
Um, I mean, Adam Fox played 19 minutes and 58 seconds, so I don't want to split hairs here, but this is the second straight game where he's played less than 20 minutes. The first 9 games, he played more than 21 minutes or more in 8 of them. So I don't know what to say, really. It's very frustrating, like that he went shotless for 4 consecutive games. It helped that he put up 6 points over those 4 games. Now he's shooting again, but the points aren't really coming the way you'd hope. We weren't expecting another 17 goals from him because he shot over 12% last season, which is not how defensemen shoot. But we would have expected a goal by now. We'd expect like maybe 10, 12 goals from Adam Fox. And he's pacing for 0, but that's how it goes before you score your first goal. So I'm sure it's coming. Yeah, I don't. It's something to watch. I think. If I'm not giving up on Adam Fox, but I'm going to keep an eye out. And Trocheck too. I don't know what the Elon. I'm sorry, I don't have an like
That's
Vincent
fair.
Trocheck is a guy I consistently do not have answers on. This again is one of those times. It's just good that you mentioned that he's been pretty quiet, including like his shots petered out for a bit too.
Yep, Shams is saying word has that Trocheck line is going to take more defensive responsibility. Yeah, to remind you, I'm saying Trocheck, Cooley, Riley Smith. That's like it sounds like a third line to me. So I don't know what you want to call it, the Kreider, Hedel, Kako line. Like I guess we'll have to wait and see if the Rangers stick with this. It's kind of like hard. I have to wrap my head around this. Exciting for Lafreniere to be playing with Panarin and Zibanejad. The power plays have been like the same, by the way, just Zibanejad, Kreider, Trocheck, Panarin, Fox. So no changes there yet. But yeah, some interesting changes that we'll need to keep an eye on over on the Rangers. Maybe with this Trocheck goal today, it might be a good time to sell. Be like, look, he's back. We're back to normal. He just scored, and maybe because I would be a little bit nervous if he's not going to be playing with Panarin any longer for sure. Though of course that could also change any second. Philip Hedel, by the way, was on a hot streak. We'll see. Like he's now playing with Kreider. Maybe that's a promotion for him. I'll be curious to see if he can keep that up. Another cold streak I want to throw at you, Brian. Evgeny Malkin. I was so excited about it. Again, another one of these guys I have on my fantasy team that I was really excited about. And I was rolling for a couple of weeks. And now all of a sudden, like Malkin every once in a while has a good game. He had a goal and 2 assists in a game against Vancouver. Fun fact, I benched him in that game because it was a busy Saturday where I had to make sit-start decisions. Outside of that game, there's 4 games before it where Malkin was pointless, and now 3 games after that where Malkin is pointless. So it's just been a real dry spell for a guy who I thought I had struck gold with, and now it's looking like fool's gold. I don't know, but for what it's worth, in the last game against the Montreal Canadiens, Crosby and Malkin were playing on the same line with Ricard Raquel, and the top power play was Crosby, Malkin, Raquel, Eric Carlson, and Matt Grzelcyk. That's crazy. What's Pittsburgh doing? They're crazy. Anyways, how
This,
worried should I be about Malkin right now?
I mean, this sounds like the end of a coach, doesn't it? Like whenever the lines get like really wild. Uh, this is what it's felt like this all year, even going back to last season. So I wonder if that's what it is too. Yeah, Malkin started really incredibly well, and again, I think this is more a reminder that we weren't expecting that start from Malkin at all, and we didn't expect it to continue either. On the whole, like I still think he could be like last season, as disappointing as it was. Malkin paced for 67 points and had 18 on the power play. He's 38 years old. I'm hoping for just about that, but it's going to be punctuated by these weird stretches of inconsistency where he barely shoots and then he randomly gets 3 points and then he barely shoots and does nothing again. So it's not he wasn't a fun guy to roster last year, and I felt really badly because I've rostered him a lot over the last few seasons, missing out on the fun earlier on, and now I'm reminded why I didn't take the draft day plunge. But that's not to say he won't reward you. It's just a matter of not knowing when that will happen.
Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, Ricard Raquel, he's on a bit of a run. 4 points in his last 4 games. Like I said, if he's top line, top power play with Crosby and Malkin, that's pretty good. Also, I shouldn't bury the lead. Crosby's on a bit of a run himself, putting up lots of multi-point games lately. He had 2 goals against Montreal, 2 goals against Anaheim, 3 assists versus Minnesota. So Crosby, was a little bit slow to start the year, but definitely picking up the pace himself recently. Yeah, with Brian Rust out, it's just crazy. You know what? It's like you bring up Malkin being like older, and we can't. We were just talking about Ovechkin before being just as old or even older, and I like kudos to Washington for because I feel like you and I were both at times being like, it looks like Washington's just not gonna have anyone for Ovechkin to play with, but they've like
Yeah.
figured it out and they've gotten like a lot of really good options there, both from the draft, Protas and Connor McMichael, but also picking up your Dylan Stromes and your Dubois and whatever, and like Ovi seems to be succeeding with a lot of different people. Meanwhile, Malkin, it's like they have to put him now with Crosby. Otherwise, I don't know. And we'll see even if that helps. So, no shade on Kyle Dubas, but
A
Washington.
lot of mistakes
Yeah,
have been
seems like it.
made in Pittsburgh, and I think Washington had more room to to work with and to flex that Pittsburgh just did not, as mistakes piled up one on top of another. But yeah, it's super. It is really interesting to see that one team can still compete and the other team continues to be kind of kneecapped by the situation they've made for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, compete and also like put those like older players, in a position to still get a lot of points. Though Crosby, I guess, doesn't need it. He'll produce no matter what. Okay, let's go to Utah next for a cold streak. I just want to put a button for now. I dropped Barrett Hayton in the cupful, so just want to let everyone know I did it earlier, maybe than last year, even where I held maybe a little longer, hoping for more. But yeah, 1 point in 7 games. He scored a goal against Calgary like after I dropped him. Or no, it was actually before I dropped him. It was like the day I was planning on dropping Barrett Hayton. Then I was like, unless he does something really crazy, I think I'm dropping him after today. It was Wednesday. Oh yeah, I think I mentioned this on the Patreon cast. Then he scored a goal and had 5 shots. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But I was like, no, I'm still dropping him. And yeah, he did nothing again yesterday versus Vegas. Utah has changed up their lines. So Hayton is now playing with Schmaltz and Matthias Michelli. It's been Keller now on the top line with Genther and Cooley, which is like very exciting for Genther and Cooley, right? Like at some point, I feel like we saw some people like paying big fab for Logan Cooley when he was dropped. I was like, why? He's not even like whatever. He's not even getting the most amazing deployment. But all of a sudden now, like Logan Cooley looking pretty great if he's going to be playing on the top line with Genther and Keller. And Cooley, by the way, 4 points in his last 4 games. He had a goal and an assist versus Vegas on Saturday. Genther, picking it up again. Keller's good. Kind of no one else on as Utah's doing too much. Sergachev's looking good, I should say. But I feel like aside from that top line and Sergachev, I'm not too interested. So yeah, Barrett Hayton, I don't think I'm going to miss him, but we'll see.
I mean, yeah, you won't miss him until the next shuffle happens in Utah. But I don't know when that'll be, and I expect to be there. I expect there to be movement throughout. But of course, this happened really shortly after. I'm like, oh yeah, Barrett Hayton looks like he's pretty locked in there on top line and top power play. So that wasn't the case. We'll see how long this sticks for. He's still 24 years old, right? So I think there's still a chance Barrett Hayton can pull himself out of where he's at. But yeah, it's I'm holding him because he was still taking shots for a while. And also I have enough other guys that I need to dump before I dump Barrett Hayton. But you might be snoozing on him depending on your format. Elon,
Yeah.
you okay?
Sorry, I was clicking on mute and it wasn't working. I think I had too many tabs open. Very
Mm.
annoying. Okay. Well, anyway, I'll continue. Uh, Right. Yeah. I don't have a lot of guys that I can drop, which is kind of annoying because I just have a bunch of guys on cold streaks that I can't drop. Like I've brought up, like all my players on my roster are like 100% rostered in Cupful or like 98. But yet, yeah, like I brought up, and I've got a couple more for you right now. Though I will mention Shams asked first, sticking with Utah, thoughts on Connor Ingram. He only has an 881 save percentage. Yeah, hasn't been a good start for him. Karel Vejmelka hasn't been much better with an 890 save percentage. I don't know if it's the goal. Brian, do you think it's more like just the goalies aren't very good, or do you think it's just like the team isn't very good, like for the goalies? Like also Connor Ingram. Like I feel like people love Connor Ingram, and it's like he hasn't done that much. But anyways, we'll see. We'll see if he can bounce back now. How likely do you think it is that Connor Ingram becomes like a guy worth holding in fantasy and not going to be a risk to blow you up?
I hope this season, but I think he's gonna have to pick his game up before too long. At the moment, like Utah's doing a pretty good job protecting him. They're doing a terrible job protecting Vejmelka for whatever that's worth. But Vejmelka in it's a very small sample, so we're not going to read a whole lot into it. Versus expected, Ingram he's about 3 save points short, which isn't great, but it's not terrible either. It's close enough to average that I'm not going to really sweat it. But I guess if he can't pull it, like, the door remains open to more starts. Although I get the sense that Utah would like to see if Ingram can be their guy. Like Vejmelka has had an opportunity, didn't take advantage, and now they want to see if it can be Ingram. So I think there's still time for Ingram to prove himself. But I guess, yeah, Shams brought up with every passing start that doesn't go that great. Maybe that does leave the door just a little more open for Vejmelka to come in and see if he can keep doing well.
Yeah. Or it could be a situation where Vejmelka doesn't come in, but Ingram still isn't like worthwhile because he just doesn't, play well enough. You look at Montembeau in Montreal, like he's getting dropped all over the place. It's not as if like, Caden Primo is looking like a threat. It's just looking like maybe just a lot of games are just not going to go well. So it'll be interesting to see if Ingram could bounce back. I don't think I'd be dropping him yet if I had Connor Ingram, but I'd be really frustrated and mad that I took him. Well, especially if it was me, because I just like didn't really believe him that much, but I would have drafted him at some point. Okay, 2 more cold streaks I'll throw at you, Brian. 2 more guys on my fantasy team over in Calgary. What happened to Nazem Kadri and Mackenzie Weegar? And actually, I don't even want to ask you about Weegar because I know rightfully so, you could just make fun of me because I was so high on him and things started so well. But yeah, like I don't know if this is a Calgary thing, but Kadri's gone so cold, pointless in 4 games. He looked like such a sure thing to start the year. He was shooting so much, like he wasn't even scoring like that much, but just things were going so well anyways. But yeah, now, like I said, pointless in 4 games for Nazem Kadri. The Oilers are playing the Flames right now. They're in the 3rd period. It's 2-1 for the Oilers. The goal for Calgary, Mantha from Tyson Barrie and Backlund. Get out of here. Where's Kadri? Where's Weegar? And yeah, Weegar, let me give you his latest stats. Also, like not too exciting. Only 1 point in his last 6 games. Also, a lot of one-shot games in there. I thought that Weegar was a big shooter. And it's like weird. You look at Weegar's game log for shots. There's some 4s. There's some 6s in there. And then just like a whole spattering of 1s. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What's going on in Calgary?
I don't know. I think it's a mix of like they're not very good as a whole, like as a whole roster, and also a little bit of bad luck. I think it's a bit of both, and this is what you get, right? When there isn't a whole lot of meat on that depth chart. So inconsistency is expected. I'm not like I think they'll all break out of it. Like I'm not gonna say, oh, like Weegar, forget it. I think Calgary deserves a little better on the power play, and maybe better on 5-on-5, or maybe not. I think they're still working some things out, and unfortunately, this is what that looks like.
Yeah, so obviously I wouldn't be dropping either of these guys. Maybe it's a good buy low time, but it's not without risk. But hopefully Calgary picks it up and their 2 studs and Kadri and Weegar can get going for me. I'm gonna need like like I said, I need all these cold streaks to be over starting next week. I'm not stressing out too much about it now. It might sound like I am, but I'm just like bringing them up for the show. But if 2 weeks go by and it's still happening, then it's like, oh no, I've made a huge mistake potentially with all these players that I'm banking on. We'll wait and see. One last thing I'll throw at you, Brian. An interesting line combination today in Toronto. They changed up their top power play. I guess the ongoing saga of the Toronto top power play. Who's the 5th person there? Started with Morgan Riley. We talked all about Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I wonder if the listeners now that don't know this are wondering, I wonder who did they switch to now? Which defenseman on the Leafs did they give it to? Guess what? It wasn't a defenseman. Matthew Knies went on the top power play today for the Leafs. They ran 5 forwards. Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Matthews, Knies. So I guess once again, you could be nervous about Morgan Riley if you want. The last time I felt like I needed to apologize when like I cried wolf and then he got back on the top power play, went on a 4-game point streak. But now it's once again a 2-game pointless streak for Morgan Riley off the top power play. We'll see how long it lasts. Meanwhile, Matthew Knies didn't do anything with the top power play today in the game against Minnesota. And he only had a shot in the game. He's got a 2-game pointless streak. He was on a hot streak before as well, just like Riley. But obviously something to watch. And if you have Matthew Knies, you're obviously pretty stoked and excited that maybe you've struck gold. But we'll see how long it lasts. Like Toronto, the final result, they lost 2-1. So it could be that Toronto will change things up for the next game. But definitely something that you should be aware of over in Toronto.
Yeah, I was actually going to say this about Florida too. Like, I don't know. It feels like I wonder if it's a matter of time before they just go 5 forwards too. Just trying to manifest there.
I mean, I think give Aaron Ekblad a chance. Like, I don't know. I don't have any.
Well, that too. But if they're done with
stocks
him,
in Ekblad,
it's like
I feel like
I mean, Morgan Riley is more proven to be capable, I think,
Yeah.
than Aaron Ekblad. And if he's not, you know, being held there, then why would anyone else be?
No, I'm with you. Okay, so Brian, with that, we've come to the end of our show plan today. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for everyone who joined us in the chat. Ooh, Calgary scored another goal. No, Sharon Govich from Kevin Ball. Get out of here. Where's my guys? Okay, thanks everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. I had a blast recording it. We really appreciate you listening to our silly shows every week and also all the fun stuff going on. I hope you like the matchup maximizer that I dropped this morning. There were 2 great short shifts last week, and also we've got another short shifts coming up next week. Well, a couple. We're going to have Lewis and Elizabeth on Tuesday, back to Shams and Jeremy on Thursday. So it's going to be a jam-packed feed as per usual. So make sure you're subscribed. Wherever you get your podcast. Keeping Karlsson is everywhere, right? Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I don't know. I use Pocket Casts. It's good. So yeah, we would really appreciate a subscribe. Apparently that helps us out. Obviously, a 5-star review wouldn't hurt as well. If you want to join the fun with our patron community, we have, the Discord is popping. We're trying to give a lot of advice. This weekend, I haven't been around as much as usual. I've had parents in town, but I'll be back to having some fun, answering all the questions and chatting with people. It's always a good time. And like we said at the start of the show, we got a new patron perk. I'll be posting this episode ad-free to the Patreon for our super supporters. So you can check out all the information, and we'll update that website. Brian, we got to update the Patreon site to mention the new perk. keepingkarlsson.com/patron to see what fancy words Brian uses to describe our new perk. But with that, Brian, let's cue the outro music, and then why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters who can access this episode ad-free. Patty, Ricard, David, Ryan, Tom, Zach, Andrea, Sammy, Philip, Aaron, Patrick, Brian, Michael, Roman, Top Cheese, Paul, and Rick. We appreciate you. We appreciate all our patrons. Elon, I appreciate you, and Shams, keeping the amazing stream of fantasy news rolling at GameDayTweets.com. I appreciate our short shifts crew. I appreciate our logos by BrandonWeeb.com and our outro music by Pat Roach. And finally, I appreciate the places from which we research the show, That's Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Puckpedia, The Athletic, hockeygoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
All right, great job as always, Brian. I also hold you in high regard. But
appreciate was the word we were using.
I cherish you. I treasure you.
Is there a reason you're not using appreciate?
Well, you said it enough for both of us. But yeah, again, thanks everyone for listening. And Brian, while we get ready for our Week 5 matchups, try to get back on track if you're me, or keep rolling like yourself. How should we be occupying our mind space?
Whoa. With your mind space, do what you can to improve others' mind spaces and make sure that fantasy hockey is something that is for everyone.
Yeah.
In the mind space.
Good.
Get them right in the mind space. Nice Cupful logo here, by the way. That's new.
How did that get there?
I don't know. I thought you put it there.
I didn't put that there.
It's been there since the start. Maybe Derek put it there.
Probably. I guess we should look. Well, I'm glad it's like a good logo. Imagine if there was something like offensive there. It was like, who put that there? I guess that's what happens when you give. Oh, Shams put it there for short shifts. Cool.
Why didn't you put the short shifts logo? Just out of curiosity.
Well, anyway, we'll talk offline. See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Okay, I've clicked the button.